And we are live.
Good evening. Today is Monday, February 22nd, 2021, and this special meeting of the Romulus Community Schools Board of Education is called to order at 5:32 p.m. We are meeting electronically, being streamed YouTube Live, pursuant to all the safeguards that are in place for COVID-19. Ms. Wester, if you would do roll call, and board members, remember, under Senate Bill 1108, please state you're present and where you are geographically located, please.
Terrell. Present. Romulus, Michigan. Wayne County. Evans.
Present. Romulus, Michigan, Wayne County.
Piles.
Present. Romulus, Wayne County, Michigan.
Kennard.
Here, Wayne County, Romulus, Michigan.
Wester, Romulus, Wayne County, Michigan. Beard. We have a quorum.
Beard and Martell are both excused. We have a quorum. If everyone will join for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I move that the Board of Education accept the meeting agenda for this special meeting as presented.
Support, Wester.
Roll call.
Terrell.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Piles.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Wester. Agenda approved.
Mr. Cooper, do we have any public comments that were submitted for this special meeting?
You're muted, David.
I said, let me bring that up. I do not have that queued up ready. Let's see. We do not.
Okay. Since there are none, we will turn over the floor to Mr. Donald Sovey, who will present to us zero-based budgeting processes and goals. Welcome, Mr. Sovey. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Good to see you. I'm going to describe to you a process that is intended to bring instructional goals and finance together. Oftentimes in many school districts, they're like two ships passing and they don't communicate. And this process will bring those two functions together so that the instructional goals are right at the top of what you want to get accomplished. I'm very excited for you. You have a lot of possibilities and options coming forward, and a time for many, many new developments to take place. I'm going to share my screen with you and go through this process. And if you have a question, you can ask me at any time. Are you able to see my screen there, Mr. Cooper?
I am.
All right, great. So we're going to move quite quickly. I have a longer version. If anybody wants to see the longer version, send me an email and I'll be glad to connect you with the recorded version. But we're going to look at budget process options, the theory behind zero-based budgeting, the chronology, a couple case studies that have been very successful, and the last one was conducted during this time of COVID. And then we're going to look at your own budget development goals and decision-making parameters, which with Sophia, you've made some great progress, and we're going to incorporate those in the document tonight. So in Michigan, we see rollover budgets. That's really what your process has been. It doesn't work very well, but the majority of school districts in Michigan are using it, unfortunately. Some start a zero-based budget, so that's doing partial, but there's no reason to do a partial. You ought to do the whole thing if you're going to do it. The full zero-based budgeting, and that's what we're talking about tonight. And then GFOA has Smarter School Spending, that we incorporate some of their concepts into this. And a year from now, you should be studying that entire program with GFOA. What are the weaknesses of rollover budgeting? Well, there's generally minimal department or building input. It's largely based on what the business office thinks. Building departments are not held accountable. It continues prior spending patterns that might not be the best for students. It can result in massive budget variances because some folks may not even know what their budget is. And that's what we found in many cases with you. The departments have never seen their budget. And the budget is not tied to a strategic plan. So I know you've had discussions on strategic plan. I'm encouraging you very much to proceed with that. Once that is completed, we'll drop in whatever those functions are that relate to that. I'm going to turn off a fan. If you'll hold for 1 minute, please. So this is the definition of zero-based budgeting that was in the Wall Street Journal. And it mainly helps you swiftly achieve organizational priorities. So you're going to look at everything from scratch, but you're going to tie it into your priorities. Again, the rollover budget relies on historical spending patterns and may not take into account new needs. Now with this time of COVID, we have a very important need to look at new needs that have come up in the last year and make sure those are sorted properly into the grants as much as possible. It involves the entire organization. It's not a business office change. There's some change in the business office, but it requires the superintendent to be fully supportive in order to move forward. It really sets the tone for the organization. And once you get into this, the various departments love it and the buildings love it. They would not want to go back because what it does is opening up everything to transparency. It's a cost management culture that it develops with everybody thinking cost effectiveness, accountability, wanting to make sure you have a good governance model, and with your strategic plan coming up, I'm certain that will be a discussion point. We want rigorous and routine processes. Some process that we use is what you're going to use every year, but we want to make sure that it's well thought out. We want to set incentives, and we want to free up unproductive costs. GFOA just did a study within the last year, and their documentation shows that accountants in general want to be very cautious in how they're building, and they sometimes leave excess money in a budget. And when you do that, at the end of the year, it can add up to millions of dollars that could be used in a more productive manner if you knew it up front. So the levels of collaboration, this is opening up collaboration. The superintendent and central office have ordinarily been those responsible for budget preparation, but we really want to bring in principals and supervisors and ask them what their needs are, and then have them look at their actual budgets and propose their needs. A little further down the road, and included in this process this year, teachers and building support could be involved. The final reports then go to the Board of Education in the community and public session. In my timeline, which you'll see later, the Board of Ed and the administrators have a joint meeting where they look at the first draft of the budget. It's proactive, transparent, collaborative, user-friendly. Oftentimes accountants speak their jargon, and we're going to try and get rid of that jargon so everybody understands. We're developing cost centers. We're breaking this multi-million-dollar budget into cost centers so it makes sense. And we've started some good work with that with your folks already. And then we can see what really is happening in those cost centers. We're going to ask for monthly financial statements that go to the board and administrators, and that they actually be looked at and discussed. I'm going to show you the budget development timeline because the timeline is very important in this. We're going to involve stakeholders. We're going to ask for amounts to be justified. We're going to assess costs while weighing benefits. We're going to have various levels of service that are presented. So if we get the budget draft done, the first draft, and it's way out of balance, we're going to ask the question, okay, what are the various levels of service? What's the top level, the second level, and the third level? You'll see a little bit more of that in a minute. So here's the very simple chart that we use with employees and managers, the difference between the rollover budgeting and the zero-based budgeting. And again, what I just said about the various choices of levels of service that will be produced in this. So we're actually going to have a form, a number of forms that we'll produce in asking your supervisors and principals, what is the base minimum service, or in other words, the must do, what's the should do, and what are the wishes? This is one of the actual forms. So if you could imagine using this form for band equipment, for example. So your band director, you would want to get some input from them and ask them, what are the must do's, what are the should do's, and what are the wishes? This is a cost center example that was actually put together by a superintendent. Battle Creek superintendent actually put this together, and it's excellent because off on the left, we have salaries and benefits, we have summary totals, we have all of the other expenses, purchase services, we even have some building costs of telephone, water and sewer, etc. Other supplies, we have custodial and maintenance supplies. And then we have the total budget to actual. We're trying to get all of the costs in here so that everybody sees everything that relates to a building. So in this particular building, the total budget and actual is 1.4 million. We want the building manager, just like if you were a branch bank, you'd want to see everything that takes into account for that branch bank. Over here, we have a breakdown of the FTEs. The names were originally in there, but we've removed those for now. And we list who's in each building. 1 FTE, here we have a 0.6. So we have a good accounting, 11.0 FTEs in this building, and a description of what they do. We have the principal right up here. It's a change of culture. Principals and supervisors become responsible for their own cost area, tied to district goals. And I guess one way to look at it that I really like, every budget cell, every dollar is going to have a job. If there's a dollar figure sitting there and it doesn't have a job and nobody can identify, what's the purpose of this particular line, then it probably would be removed during this process. But we want every budget item to know what the purpose is. It's going to stop some mid-year spending requests. Business office and superintendent monitor, they don't actually propose budgets for the entire system. They propose some in their own areas, but we're asking for more input from others. We don't want to see a situation where we're going to just spend money, just spend it just to spend it. If it has no purpose, we should not be spending it. And one of the beauties of all this is that building leaders assist in the district-wide budget balancing, because we'll get the first run done and it's going to say we're out of balance. And then we have to start whittling that down. We have a series of about 5 meetings that would be planned to make that happen. And they're actually kind of fun. So what are the advantages? Spend it or lose it is eliminated. Departmental ownership. It's going to have us take a real hard look at FTE compensation, which amounts to about 75% in most school districts, because we're asking individuals to tell us what are the FTEs now and what do you expect them to be next year? What are they requesting? It's going to help minimize surprises at the end of the year. Nobody likes surprises, and those variances that we sometimes see will be minimized. It's going to enhance the financial literacy. We're going to be able to understand the whole finance section better. So here's the process, the strategic plan. You have it in motion, but we can start this process even without that completed. We're going to develop budget development goals and decision-making parameters. We're going to look at this for you at the last step today. And we know that all of your building folks are not finance experts, so we're going to have a little Finance 101. We're also going to include the administrative assistants because we know they have a key role in working with finances. Develop that cost center breakdown, which we have for your district already. We're going to ask, what is the minimum level of service and what are the other levels? What's the revenue projection look like? We're going to look at the fund balance, what can be absorbed, what can't. We're going to meet bi-weekly until this gets resolved and ready for something to go to the board. So here are the budget development goals and decision-making parameters that I talked about. We have vision, mission, and goals. As your strategic plan comes along, that may change. The cost centers are developed. We're going to show you some tentative goals, and we're going to show you the various parameters. How are we going to make decisions on all of these categories as we're putting together this $30 million budget? And at the end of the day, we want to make sure it has financial integrity. Here's the timeline. Ordinarily, we'd start in November. We can still do it with your district, but we need to move quickly. This is what I talked about, the first budget reviewed in a board and administrative joint workshop. We'd have a 2-hour workshop, and that would be where all of this finally comes together. Here's the Smarter School Spending Best Practices from GFOA. Here's your academic officer, and here's finance. Again, they often work in silos in many districts. We want to bring them together to go down the path, understand the goals, understand who the audience is and the stakeholders, figure out what the goals are, set some smarter goals, figure out what's prevented us from reaching these goals in the past, figure out the best strategies to move forward. And one key point that is often not included is how are we going to pay for these? We can come up with wonderful instructional goals, but if we don't attach the dollars to them in a meaningful fashion over maybe a couple years, it will struggle. And then how do we prioritize the strategies? So here are some case studies. I'm going to move quickly on these so we have a little time. Bay City Public Schools, significant leadership turnover. Here was the press report. They were suggesting they might have a $2.5 million deficit. New superintendent is hired July 1st, 2017. They get a letter from the Department of Treasury saying you have a potential for fiscal distress. We then produced a business services site review like we've done for you. The district concluded a strategic plan in January of that year, just like you're beginning to start. The budget amendment work was significant in this district, in the Bay City district, and it took a number of months to get that completed. Finances were finally stabilized in June 2018. And by the end of the second year in this process, their financial position exceeded what MSBO recommendation is and what GFOA recommendation is. So it was very successful for them. But one of the keys is the leadership of the superintendent and the board in making this happen in that district. From the superintendent, he says it enabled us to free up resources that helped our students and community. It helped him with the coronavirus management. There's a constant evaluation of programs going forward. Efficiencies are developed. Financial literacy is improved. The board loves zero-based budgeting up there. If you want to talk to somebody in Bay City, I can surely connect you. They understand what they're talking about when they're talking about zero-based budgeting. They look at some strategic abandonment concepts as you're going through this. Sometimes we have programs that have been going for years and years but haven't really been examined. Sometimes we need to abandon and move forward. It empowers the leadership team, takes it down to the teacher level. I'm going to move through Coloma. It's pretty much the same thing, talking about collaboration. I'm moving quickly so we can get to the other goals and decision-making parameters. We will send this to you so you can review it separately. Here's what we've started to put in place for your district. And with Sophia's work last week, we've incorporated that in here. We've taken your mission off of your website. You may change that during your new process, but it's quite good. I really like it, the mission and vision. And the goal will be to develop a transparent, consultative approach for the zero-based budgeting, establish cost centers. We may have some other goals that are clearly articulated there. Here's the process that you saw earlier. Here's a breakdown on the cost centers. We list elementary schools because we're going to ask them to work together as a group. We want some common thinking in elementary schools and in finance and programs. We want you to consider the mission and vision. When your strategic plan is completed, you'll likely have all of these categories filled out. And as we move now, the decision-making parameters for curriculum, most of these came from the presentation you heard from the instructional department. They're excellent and they give us good talking points to move forward. I've thrown one in, examine sunset options and look at IDEX for comparative analysis. Curriculum, what you saw last time. Priority 1, which was excellent from Sophia's work. Priority 2, 3. So you've got a good share of this completed, but the next step on this would be to meet with administrators, have them help fill this out, professional development, personnel. This is one I suggested, document and require assessment of skills, knowledge, and abilities for future hires. Supplies, purchase, and purchase services, will come up with parameters there. Capital outlay, review that sinking fund, look at replacement cycles. And don't forget revenue. Oftentimes I ask a district, let me see your expenditures or let me see your budget, and they hand me only the expenditures. But we have some good points to make with your district on revenue, and you can be in a very good place if we think these through. The financial integrity, that's got to be a strong part of this. And with that, I'm going to exit this and stop sharing and see if you have some feedback. And when you see this next, the administrators will have filled out all of it, and we'll bring it back to you for final comments. But I'm open to final comments now. What are some big picture goals from your viewpoint and decision-making parameters that you might want to include at this point that we can show to administrators? Is there any input from anybody on those concepts? And if not, that's fine, because we're going to fill this completely out with the work of the administrators and supervisors. If you want to email me some feedback, that would be fine too. And I can bring it to the administrators when we meet with them and make sure that that is included. Are there any questions or any more feedback?
Hi, this is Judy Kennard.
Hi, Judy.
All right, good. I guess my question is your timeline in terms of rolling this out. Are you saying that you anticipate on having this this done by, the next fiscal year, or what is your timeline on all this?
Absolutely. I have a draft timeline put together. It's been delayed a little bit because you have so many things going right at the moment, but I would have to relook at that with the superintendent. And Judy, I did start one of these actually on May 2nd. It was really very fast, and with the cooperation when everybody was really interested in having this happen, it can be done. So if we're starting this the first week in March, we actually have 4 months to get it together and ready for the board involvement toward the end and board action. Yeah, with the budget amendment that's going on right now, this would be the next step and can be done partially at the same time.
And I guess my next question would be the type of system that will be supporting this. And pulling, and I saw the information you had, it appeared to be all XLS spreadsheets, and I know that the district has a data system that they pull. I believe they pull information down from Wayne Risa and in developing it. So what I guess the application I'm looking at is how is this data going to be compiled into the spreadsheet, and how is that data, or is that something, because that's important when you're looking at and building reports, and then you're sitting down and you are monitoring that, you're having more and more contact with, and some of that information should be easily ready, for, the collaboration and so forth. So I know Access is a data system under Microsoft that we use. As a matter of fact, I'm familiar with Zero Budgeting. That's the system that I created for a major university, and I handled all of that, from the paper back into whatever. So I guess my question is, is it going to be web-based? Is it going to be XLF? What type of applications are we talking about here?
Most of that is underway right now, and it's being compiled. Tonight, there's still some work being on it. Jewel Claire is working on that. By tomorrow, I expect to have almost all the cost centers broken down. We've looked at some of them already in the finance HR meeting. So it's all coming from SMART, and they can look at all of the detailed information in every single account. So we're training the cost center leaders to be able to get in there and make sure they have access. And we'll be working on it cost center by cost center on an Excel spreadsheet and educating them on that. But all the information is there. I'm very happy with it, Judy. Other questions from anyone? I'll be happy to talk with anybody individually. If you want to call me, I'll be happy to discuss that. And I'm comfortable moving forward with 4 months. Actually, that's more than the 2-month district that I had breakneck speed on.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sobey. And if there are any questions, we will get those to you and Dr. Edmondson, so we can decide how to move forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so it is 6 p.m. and we will then move into our regular board meeting. My agenda.
Do we need to adjourn this meeting or do we move forward?
Let's adjourn. Let's adjourn. Thank you, Ms. Wester. Let's adjourn and then go into the other one. Motion to adjourn.
Support, Wester. Piles,
Yes.
Terrell,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Wester, adjourned at 6 p.m.
Okay. So the regular meeting of the Romulus Community Schools Board of Education is called to order at 6 p.m. on Monday, February 22nd, 2001. Again, Ms. Wester, would you please do a roll call for this meeting? Mr. Martell and Ms. Beard are excused, and board members pursuant to Senate Bill 1108, please indicate your location.
Kennard,
Here, Wayne County, Romulus.
Terrell,
Present, Wayne County, Romulus, Michigan.
Evans,
Present, Romulus, Michigan, Wayne County.
Piles,
Present, Romulus, Wayne County, Michigan.
Lester, present, Romulus, Michigan, Wayne County. We have a quorum.
Next, we have the motion. I will move that the Board of Education accept the meeting agenda as presented.
Kennard, support.
Roll call vote, please.
It should be as amended. We had an amended agenda.
No, we received a new agenda that included that action item.
Piles,
Yes.
Terrell,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Lester, yes. Agenda approved.
Tonight, we have Mr. Daniel Clark with us with our audit presentation. So, Mr. Clark, we will turn the floor over to you at this time.
All right, can everyone hear me? And
Yes, we
see
can.
me? And can you see
Yes.
me as well? Okay, excellent. I believe there was a presentation going to be presented on screen.
Give me 1 second and I will bring it up.
Thank you.
Everyone should be able to see the presentation.
Excellent. All right. So, and I can just let you know, David, when to switch
Yes.
slides. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you. So my name is Daniel Clark. I'm the principal on the audit engagement for Romulus Community Schools as of June 30th, 2020. If you want to flip slides. On the agenda tonight that I'll be presenting, I'm going to just introduce the team members quickly. We have some required board communications. Going to go over the financial results of the district as of June 30th. I'm going to talk briefly about upcoming accounting pronouncements and then open it up for any questions. But feel free to ask questions as I'm going through this. Often it's a little bit more appropriate to answer them as I'm talking about it, so feel free to stop me if you have something. Next slide, please. So the executive team of the Romulus School District Audit included myself as the signing principal. We had Nate Balderman, who was the technical reviewer, always on a first-year engagement. We like to have a second principal involved. So Nate helped perform that task this year. Tracy Kasperik was the senior manager, and then Teresa Freeman was the senior. Next slide, please. So the required board communications, first one is, as always, we like to state what type of opinion that we issued. So we were happy to state we issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on your June 30th, 2020 financial statements. So what that means is that all the numbers in the financials are materially correct. It doesn't necessarily speak to the financial health or lack thereof of the district. It just speaks to whether the numbers that are in the financials are appropriate. But this is an A rating. So obviously the district did well as far as the opinion goes. And so we were happy to communicate that. Number two, we're also asked to let you know if we implemented any new accounting pronouncements for fiscal year 20, and there were none. There was one that would have been, GASB 84 would have been implemented during fiscal year 20, but due to COVID, COVID delayed all accounting pronouncements by 1 year. So GASB 84, which relates to the fiduciary activities, so your student activity accounts, will most likely become a special revenue fund for your fiscal year 21. But again, that was delayed by 1 year due to COVID. Number three, we're asked to assess your accounting estimates. So those things such as any allowances on doubtful accounts, depreciation expense, those inputs put into calculating your pension and your other post-employment benefits. We assess those and deem those to be reasonable. Number four, we're asked to let you know if any difficulties were encountered during the audit, and we were happy to say there were none. And what this actually means is, were there any disagreements with us and management over an accounting practice, or whether we felt like something was not reported correctly? So as far as difficulties go, we did not encounter any pushback by management. Everyone was extremely helpful during the audit process. We are asked to also communicate any material misstatements, and we did note material misstatements as part of the audit process, and those were all booked. And I'll talk about those briefly on the next slide when we get to it. So those were booked, and anytime we have a material misstatement that needed to be booked, we have to have a finding that goes with that. There were no uncorrected immaterial misstatements, so sometimes if there's an adjustment we feel like could or could not be made, but it's not material enough to make the district make, they can choose to not make those adjustments, but all the adjustments that were recommended were made, and there were no uncorrected immaterial misstatements. And then lastly, we're told to communicate any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in other matters. So if you want to go to the next slide. These were communicated in the board communication letter, which I believe you all would have received. And these included, number one, those material audit adjustments, including a prior period adjustment. Also, similar to last year, the preparation of the financial statements and preparation of the CFA. Also, as the school district is aware, the audit report was delayed in filing. So that was issued just, I believe, last week. So the original due date was December 1st, which was delayed 1 month due to COVID. And again, anytime that a school district goes past that date, we have to issue a finding for late submission. There were also some findings related to the bidding requirements and also for accounting for capital assets. If you want to go to the next slide. Similar to smaller finance departments, segregation of duties is always very challenging. So often we will have to issue a segregation of duties finding stating, obviously with a small finance department, not everything can be properly segregated. And we noted that for the district as well. There were also a couple of findings related to your single audit, is what we call it. And so anytime a district receives more than $750,000 in federal dollars, we have to do a separate single audit. And there were a couple of findings 8 through 11, related to the two programs that we tested, the Child Nutrition Cluster and the Title I program. And those findings are listed there through number 8 through 11. And then number 12, 13, and 14 are other matters. So those things that did not rise to a significant deficiency or material weakness. And I'll just stop briefly there. Findings are graded as far as a material weakness being the highest finding, a significant deficiency being secondary, and then what we call other matters or management letter comments. So those are more best practice things that we feel like the organization could do better, but aren't as significant as a material weakness or a significant deficiency. So numbers 12 through 14, there were 3 matters that we felt like the school district could improve on. Number 12 was pension biweekly contributions. There weren't the required support there for us to look at to confirm that those were to confirm the amounts that were submitted. Again, those were incorrectly submitted. It's just the support behind that was not available. And then next slide, please. And then 13 and 14, again, other matters. Checks should be escheated after they're so old, and there were some older checks that had been outstanding for a long time. And again, we just recommend those be followed up on, and if not, escheated to the state properly. And then just one other matter related to how interfunds were accounted for and not cleared out properly from prior years. But again, not rising to a level of a material misstatement or a significant deficiency. Moving on to the next slide. So now we'll move on to the financial results of the district. Again, I mentioned that we did issue an unmodified opinion. Again, that does not speak to the financial health or lack thereof of the district. But as you'll see in the next couple slides, the district is in a very healthy financial state. At the end of June 30th, 2020, total assets of the district equaled $76,926,000. That was a decrease from 2019, where you had $79,495,000 in assets. And again, this includes your capital assets, so those things as your buildings and your equipment. And you'll see the biggest change there outside of the net capital assets was your receivable balance. And I know in 2019 you had a $400,000 receivable related to the MAISL equity distribution, which was not there at the end of this year. And you also had a tax settlement from Wayne County that came after year-end last year, but it occurred prior to June 30th of this year. So both of those combined equaled just over $1 million, which caused that decrease in receivables. Your net capital assets decreased, so each year you're recording depreciation expense, and you had depreciation expense of about $2.6 million with additions of 2.1. And then you also transferred a property from capital assets to assets held for sale. So I know the district has 4 different properties that are being held for sale, and those are in that other assets category of $1.9 million. So that's why the other assets increased $1.5 million. It moved from a capital asset to a asset held for sale. Next slide. So the district had at the end of June 30th of 2020, $140 million in liabilities. That's a decrease from 2019 of $141 million. You'll see the biggest change there is your net pension liability went up about $2.7 million. Again, that's a result of the actuary completing that and calculating what that future benefit to employees is. So that went from 44 million to 47 million in 2020. Your long-term debt actually changed very little. It changed about $245,000. That was a result of 17.7 million in additions, but payments of 23.2 million in payments, and about 10 million of that was a refund during the current year. Next slide, please. So assets minus liabilities is your net pension, or I'm sorry, your net position or your equity, and that's in 3 different buckets. So you'll see net investment in capital assets equals about 12%. Your restricted dollars equals about 5%. So those monies that you received for grants or other types of very specific ways that they have to be spent that are being held by the district at the end of the year that have not been spent on their purpose yet. And then the largest part of that pie is your unrestricted. It's a negative 83%, and that's a result of your net pension coming on the books and your net other post-employment benefits, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Next slide. So again, those 3 categories, you'll see that top line is your net investment in capital assets. That's remained relatively stable over the last several years. You had just under $12 million in net equity in capital assets at the end of the year. Your those restricted dollars, you were at 4.8 million at the end of the year, and that increased just a little bit, about 200,000 from 2019, from 4.6 million. Next slide. And then this is that net position, the unrestricted piece. So you'll see that bottom line, you had negative 79 million in unrestricted net position. And again, this is entity-wide. So this is when you're back in 2015, when your net pension came on your books, and in 2018, when your OPEB or your other post-employment benefits came on your books. Obviously, that dropped that number significantly. That middle line there, that blue line shows what your net unrestricted position would be if you took out the effects of the net OPEB and the net pension liability. So instead of being at 79 million, you'd be closer to a $30 million net unrestricted deficit. Next slide. So we talked about the balance sheet, and now we'll talk about the income statement, again, entity-wide. So all funds. So you were at 44.7 million in revenue at the end of 2020, just a little bit lower than in 2019, where you had 45.1 million, and your expenses for 2020 were 40.7 million compared to 36.9 million last year. You'll see in all 3 years, your revenue far exceeded your expenses on the entity-wide level. So again, a very positive trend there. Next slide. Next, we'll talk about your major revenue line items. So that top line is your local dollars. So you went from 21 million last year to 22 million this year. And that has significantly increased over the last 3 years. So a very positive trend. And that bottom line is your state revenue. And that was at 15.9 million at the end of the year compared to 16.9 at the end of last year. So your state revenue continues to decline over the last 3 years. Next slide. Your other two major revenue line items are your federal dollars. So you'll see that top line, you went from 4.1 million last year to 5.2 million dollars this year. A significant chunk of that is your Title I dollars, your child nutrition cluster, and your special education dollars. And then that bottom line is your interdistrict monies, and that has remained relatively stable over the last 3 years. You were just below the $2 million mark in 2020. Next slide. And now we'll speak just briefly about your general fund. So again, this is what is most important to the district as a whole, because this is where most of your operations go through. You'll see your revenue at the end of the year. You had 32.07 million in revenue with expenses at 31.9. So your revenues just exceeded your expenses. I think you had about $120,000 net income for 2020. In 2018, you also saw a surplus. In 2019, your expenses just were over your revenues about 400,000, but over the last 3 years, your revenues have equaled or exceeded your expenses in those 3 years presented here. Next slide. And this is, and again, I apologize for how small this is. This is your budget to actual schedule just for the general fund. So the district originally budgeted a net loss in the general fund of about $1.4 million. It was then just, it was adjusted as far as the final budget was adjusted prior to year end to have a loss of $1.7 million. But actually, per that actual column, the district came in about 126,000 to the positive. So a very positive result there as a result of some cost savings and a significant increase in revenue over actual. So you'll see the revenue you exceeded by $3.5 million. Next slide, please. And then just one final financial statement, a result slide. So we always like to show how much coverage ratio a district has. So we compare your fund balance, your unrestricted or unassigned fund balance, to your annual expenditures in the general fund. And you were currently at about 1.6 months in general fund unassigned balance. So that equates to about 13 or 14%. GFOA recommends that amount to be around the 2 to 3 month mark. So you're very close to the 2 month mark. And again, that's if this goes below the month mark, it can potentially state that there could be some cash flow issues, but there has been no issues such as that in the district. And I will say, to keep this very consistent, year over year is a very positive thing. So I think you're in a very healthy spot as far as your general fund ratio, which is around the 13 to 14%. So again, to keep this as sort of a gauge that this should stay consistent year to year. And as you'll see, it has stayed very consistent over the last 3 years. Next slide. And these are just a couple of upcoming accounting pronouncements over the next couple of years. Again, these were all delayed by 1 year due to COVID. Most of these will have very little to no impact on the district. GASB 87, that first one deals with leases. So any material leases that the district have, we'll work with them to make sure those are accounted for under the new guidance. And then move to the next slide. And then GASB 84, as I mentioned at the very beginning, that will be effective for next year, the only one effective for fiscal year 21. And that will be assessing your student activity accounts, and most of those will be moved over to special revenue funds. So I know that was a lot of information thrown at everybody, but can I open it up for any questions at this point?
Do any board members have questions? Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Didn't Miss Wester have her hand up? Miss Wester had her hand up. Maybe she hit the button by mistake.
I had hit the button by mistake, Dr. Edmondson. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to speak, obviously, to Daniel Clark and Don Sovey, and to Sophia and to the entire cabinet. I want to thank you all. You put a lot of time into this. We all know where we were, and we know what we've been through. And to get to this point, I'm excited that we're here finally, that the audit is now complete. We have some work to do. We have some findings. That's not to be unexpected for us, not at all. We had some corrective action, ways that we will address these issues. And I'm excited in terms of the fund equity or general fund. I know people get excited about that, and so do I, because I've been in districts where it's the complete opposite. So I'm very excited about that, but it also gives people a false sense too. It can give a false sense. There was a lot of chaos. I mean, I don't have to explain and air my dirty laundry here, but reality is there was a lot of chaos. When you have a lot of chaos, you have very little planning, and things are really haphazard. And then a lot of things fall through the cracks, and then you turn around and things are looking so great because they fell through the cracks. COVID happened. That's terrible. But a lot of school districts have actually benefited financially from COVID because of the amount of support that they've gotten from the state and federal government. Oh, I'll be remiss. I forgot Marie Miller is a huge a player in this for us in terms of our grant monies. But we worked really hard here. I want to thank all those people that had something to do with this. And I'm very excited. We have a very good future ahead of us. We have some findings that we can certainly work, that we are going to, while Daniel's on here, a lot of findings that we're going to address and improve upon. A few things. I know people know that we have contracts open. So when you have contracts open, people get excited about this number, overly excited. The good thing is, yes, there is some money, but there's a lot of planning. There's a lot of right sizing. Our district needs to be right sized. We are not right sized. We have a lot of classes that are, we have less kids than we should. And when you start staffing the way that you should, it'll allow you to even further right size where we are. So I'm just very excited. I thank all the players, because this has been a source of frustration for me, but this is good news for us. We're going into a millage too. The community gets to see that financially we are in very good shape. I know they'll be expecting us to continue that, and we will certainly continue that. I know people are going to be watching to see if the funds go down or something. The reality is the goal is to have more revenue than you have expenditures. And as the superintendent and an experienced superintendent, I'm going to make certain that we have more revenue than we do expenditures. One of the things that I was looking on there that Daniel presented that I saw on there, I can't exactly remember what it is, but I did the math and I was like, oh, when you sell a building, okay, and I don't think we've gotten that money yet, but when you sell a building, that's additional revenue. And we have people that are looking at a couple of other vacant buildings that I promised not only the Board of Education, but I also promised this community that we have a commitment to getting rid of dilapidated buildings, and we have a commitment to getting rid of buildings that have been sitting there. It's not fair to the community. So we are absolutely going to address that too. I'm just very excited because I know what this could have been. And, frankly, I would say it started with Tim Gardner, who sent Don Sovey to us. Don Sovey's been very thorough and very, very influential in what we've been able to do. The school board has been tremendous too, and your trust in me. I thank you for that. And just moving forward, I'm very excited for all of us and for our district. So just thank you all. Could have been worse. And this is a good thing for us to celebrate.
Yeah, and I'll make
way to celebrate it. I'm done.
Yeah, and I can make one more comment. So as part of the audit process, as Dr. Edmondson stated, we went through a corrective action plan with the district, with Dr. Edmondson, with the finance staff. So most, if not all, the findings that were noted either have been taken care of or they will be soon. And there's a date that is assigned to when these will be corrected. So we feel very confident that the findings will be, most if not all, will be cleared up by the end of the June 30th, 2021 fiscal year. And again, that will be part of our audit process moving forward to follow up on those and make sure that what was committed to is actually done. So again, we really appreciate Dr. Edmondson's input and help in that, and also those on the finance team and those that helped get this audit to completion. So thank you very much.
This is Judy Kennard. I have a question to Mr. Clark. During that timetable, June 20 fiscal year for those correction action plans, is there checkpoints or is it that you just come back at that time of year? Is there anything where there's a timeline where you're checking back, or is it just a one time?
Yeah, so it was discussed for us to actually have a follow-up prior to June 30th of 2021. So I would expect in the next couple months, probably leading up to planning of the June 30th, 2021 audit. So maybe May timeframe is when we'll actually be following up to see where they're at. So if there's something additional that needs to occur, that they'll have at least a month or so prior to year end to get that finalized.
I could add one thing, this is Don Sovey, and that is that we're working on systems, reinstalling systems, with all the turnover that the district has experienced. When somebody leaves, the systems go out the door. So that's, part of this budget process, and meeting with finance and HR is looking at reestablishing those systems.
Dr. Sobey, when you say systems, are you saying internal controls, or are you talking technical systems or people?
All of that, all of what you said, plus communication, opening up the books, making sure everything's transparent, everybody understands, what their role is and what their budgets are. So it's reestablishing all of that trust and making sure people understand, and we can all be understanding the finances as we go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Sovey, and thank you, Dr. Edmondson, for your statement as well. We were a deficit district that preceded my time on the board, but we came out of that in record time due to a lot of diligence and wisdom by the leaders we had in place. But we have taken that, and our standing today is good because we're, Dr. Edmondson, I appreciate you coming in and talking about our buildings that we've carried and not continuing to carry that cost. I appreciate your foresight and where we're going, because we are committed to assessing current needs and allocating resources accordingly, and not just doing things the way we've always done. And Mr. Sovey, thank you for your presentation on the zero-based budgeting, because we can see how all of these things that we've discussed are perfectly aligned to accomplish the objective of getting us to the goals that we want for our students. So, Mr. Clark, I thank you, and Mr. Sobey. Does anyone from the board have any other questions before we move on? If there are none, then for the consent agenda, all matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature by the Board of Education and will be acted upon by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items. If any member of the board or any citizen requests discussion of an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will become the first item of business under the report of the superintendent portion of the agenda. A, to approve the minutes of the Board of Education for the February 2nd, 2021 special meeting and the February 8th, 2021 regular meeting. B, to approve the bills for payment as submitted by Superintendent Dr. Benjamin Edmondson in the amount of $564,227.15. C, to approve the personnel actions as submitted by Human Resource Director Margaret Hazlitt. Resignation of Shelby Gregory, Secretary at Barth Elementary, effective 1/22/21, and resignation of Mary Kennedy, Administrative Assistant, Student Services at Central Office, effective 2/26/21. Is there a motion and support?
This is Wester. I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda as presented.
Kennard,
Terrell.
Moved Wester, supported by Kennard. Roll call.
Terrell,
Yes.
Kennard,
yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Piles,
Yes,
Wester, yes. Motion is approved.
thank you. Mr. Cooper, do we have any public comments for agenda items only that were submitted?
Not for agenda items.
Okay, thank you. Then Dr. Edmondson, the floor is yours for the report of the superintendent.
Thank you. This is always my favorite part of the board meeting, particularly when your finances are good. So I'm going to start with, says superintendent's leave here. Some of you know this, others of you don't. I'm going out. I have an open heart surgery procedure. This is my third one. You can't help genetically who you are. It's a surprise. It was a surprise to me, but I brought it up. I knew that I was having some shortness of breath issues going up my steps and carrying simple bags. And so I contacted my cardiologist, and we found that I have a severe leak again. I've had open heart surgery twice in 7 years. My last one was October 2019, and I'm out again. It is what it is, and I hope to leave the district in very good hands. I suspect that I will be out for a number of weeks. As little as 2, as much as 6. We'll see how that goes. I don't mind speaking openly about this because I think it's important too. And as I've dealt with this, it makes you have to deal with your own mortality as well. But this is the third time, so I know what to expect. I won't be able to drive for 6 weeks. But things have changed because of COVID. You can work virtually in a lot of respects. So usually by week 2, I feel really good and I feel like, oh, I can drive, but you can't drive because the chest is cracked open again. So there's a healing process that takes place. So for at least 2 weeks, I'm sure I'll be off grid. The thing that I've said in my last open heart surgery was that something as simple as texting, calls, and emails mean so much to me. When I was a younger man, I don't think that they meant as much, but as I get older, they mean so much to me. So anybody that's certainly willing to send a hello or a text, how are you doing? Or I communicated with a lot of people on Facebook Messenger. I really appreciate that. Not sad. It's kind of funny at my age of 51. I'll be 52 March 16th. March 18th, I have open heart surgery. And then they called me today and said they could get me in March 16th. Nah, we're good. Not going to mess up my birthday plans like that. But, you know, at this age, I don't take as many things as I did for granted. And the idea that I've had the surgery before makes me understand what I'm going to go through. It's very emotional, more so than physical. I would say that it's very emotional. And I'm prepared to go through that. And, you know, I just wanted the community to know. And I know I've shared with the board, and I've definitely shared with the cabinet. There's a certain humility and, you know, humbleness that comes with that, dealing with your own physical, you know, your own physical mortality or whatever you want to call it. So I will be out March 18th. I'm trying to get done as much as I can. My recommendation to the board, certainly that you will do what you need to do. But, you know, my recommendation as an experienced superintendent is that we find a retired superintendent or somebody who has done the job, who understands what it is to be in the seat. Experience does matter. And I certainly wouldn't want that burden to be on the cabinet, because each one of the cabinet members, directors and executive directors, we all have so much to do. We all have major projects that will not allow us to be able to jump in the seat of the superintendent while trying to do your own job. I wouldn't suggest that to the board. I would suggest I have somebody in mind, and, you know, Marie Miller has been wonderful for our district. She understands our finances. She's worked with us over a year. I've met her this year, but she was the former superintendent of River Rouge, also the financial director of finances for River Rouge. I've talked to her. I would love for the board to potentially negotiate with her to, you know, take this seat. That's ultimately your choice. But I think that she's very well respected from our cabinet. She's very familiar to a lot of us. And I think that would be in our best interest. You know, I have no questions. If anybody ever asked me about myself, I'm able to talk to you and be open and honest. Most people, I don't think, talk about, you know, their leaves or anything like that. I'm very open about it. And I thank the board for the opportunity you've given me. You know, tomorrow's not promised, but I will say I thank you for the opportunity that you've given me to lead. I've taken it very seriously. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time in the district. I'm not saying that I'm not going to return. That's not it. But, you know, while you have an opportunity to thank people publicly, I choose to do that. I won't do it later. I will do it when I have the chance. So I just thank you. I'm looking forward to getting this over. I don't want to prolong it. And, you know, I'm very hopeful that, you know, I'm having this time, it needs to be valve replacement. I told them I cannot emotionally handle another repair. I just can't. So this is a replacement. We'll see how that goes. And I will keep you informed. You're more than welcome to ask me questions. You know, I don't have enough, you know, and this is what people need to know. Even as the superintendent, I haven't been here long enough to get FMLA, so I can't. So I have to use sick days, vacation days. I have to use whatever it takes to be able to you know, make it through this and make it through it financially too. So sometimes you got to be judicious in how you use your sick days and how you use your vacation days, because you never know when you're going to need it. I've not asked the board to do anything extra for me or anyone else. People have volunteered for my cabinet to do so. I have days I'm going to do what I have to do, and I look forward to coming back. So I have, I think, one more meeting. I don't know, one more official board meeting, I think, that I will have, and then I'll be gone. So, you know, it's not going to be some major dissertation for me when I go. Just know the 18th, I'm out, literally out. And then you know, usually I'll be all right on the 19th. I'll be a little bit more cognizant. So again, thank you, and please expect that, and I appreciate it. And then the board can have their own personal conversations about what you want to do, go on a closed session or whatever you need to do to figure out who's going to replace me. So that's it for my FYI on the superintendent's leave. I will put something out to the district tonight or tomorrow, just letting them know what I just said to you. No questions? Wouldn't think so, but certainly if you had some, you could always ask. Possible tower location follow-up, Barth. We have not moved forward with that. The realtor asked me, where are we with that? And I said, we're still waiting from the city of Romulus to give us information on the cell tower, how to do that, what information is needed. But I did tell the realtor that we would not be incurring the finances for that at all. I gave them an example of what Troon Law sent to us in terms of what's out there in terms of being compensated when you lease a building. And, we've leased for a decent price. It's sitting there. So it's just free money, essentially, putting a tower there. But that might not be the case if the city comes back and tells us there's some other things to it. So I'll get back to you, but we're just waiting for the city of Romulus to get back to us on what things are necessary. And then we turn that over to the company that's interested in purchasing our building. We also, as a segue too, have interest in Superior. There's strong interest in Superior. We got another email. I believe Bill Garland and Jeff Barfow may have walked them through the building. Strong interest. I believe the building is valued at $250,000 with the land. I believe that's the number. If I'm off, I'm off. But I thought, go ahead, Bill. I see you want to say something, but I thought that was the number.
This is slightly higher. It's at 280.
Okay, 280. 30,000 does make a difference. So 280, and if we get a strong offer for that, I'll be coming to the board about that. And then there are interests in our other properties. And the realtor is very excited, and he said, frankly, that when you have our party, meaning Romulus, that's interested in selling these properties, it just looks different. That's what he said. This year looks very different because we are actively shopping our properties. We are getting them assessed, and we're letting people in the community know they need to go. And as I said, it's our responsibility to a community. When you have buildings that sit there for too long, you got to get rid of them. But I promise you, we're not going to sell anything that is less than its assessed value. Nobody gets anything for free around here. Any questions about that? Otherwise, I'll move on. I sent a question. Trustee Evans asked a question about a particular consultant that was being paid. That consultant is Marie Miller. Marie Miller is a consultant that was hired sometime last year previous to me. I did not know who she was, but she is contracted to work on our grants and other finances, as a matter of fact. She's been responsible for $8.2 million that has come into our district. All of the cabinet members are thrilled with Marie Miller because of the amount of money that she has brought to us. And not only that, her professionalism, she leaves no stone unturned, uncovered, very, very professional in how she does things. Very good question by Trustee Evans as to who is this, because the rate is high. Definitely it's high, but when she works with us, she'll work for the day. She wasn't expecting to work with us this long, but as you saw the audit, we had some issues. So we really needed Marie's assistance, and she's worked really hard with Dr. Laws on right sizing, getting us ready. We're thrilled at the amount of grant money that we have because of Miss Miller, as well as Dr. Laws as well. The two of them have worked remarkably together. So we'll have, in some capacity next year, we're definitely going to have her, but we're looking to transition some things because I believe that you want to do things internally. Okay. But if you have the best, and this is what I say to people all the time, where in America can you get good talent for free? And then there's always silence. I usually say the superintendency, wherever I am. That's just a joke. But when you have good talent, it does cost you money. But in this case, yes, she's costing us money, but we also brought in $8.2 million and counting, because every time I turn around, usually the next week, we're getting more money. So thank you, Trustee Evans, for asking that question and allowing me to uncover some of those things. So, I put her name out there. That's who she is, and she does excellent work. Are there any questions there? Thank you. FYI, other real simple. I'm very excited today. I did 2 videos that will be coming out. I did one probably 2 weeks ago. We just hadn't put it out. And that was on the restore and renew, the restore and renewal millage. That's just a quick little blurb for about a minute and a half, just telling them the date. But I'm working on some things now. I'll probably bring in Mr. Sovey working on our website. I'm going to absolutely utilize our marquee, particularly the one on Wayne Road that says, if you want accurate information on the millage, this is the website you get it from. Listening to anybody else, I wouldn't do that. It's going to come from us. I'll work on that. I'm also going to work with, I believe at this point, it's Miss Bales, just telling her some kind of helping moving her forward on the outside, as a non-district employee. And then there's things that, because I'm going to be out, it's pretty problematic to me that my timing on my leave kind of coincides with the work that I would have been doing for the millage. So somebody has to be the face of that. Somebody needs to get that going. It could be multiple faces of that, but need to start. One of the things that I did previously is bringing in the business community to share with them how that's impactful. When I first came here, I tried to go to the Chamber of Commerce, but it doesn't seem like that's in great shape yet. But whenever we get an opportunity, you want to go to nursing homes, assisted living, people that that are voting. We want to make certain that, and the school district can't do this part, but you get literature out to people that are absentee voting, because as I've already been informed by 3 citizens, there's some misinformation that's out there already. And it shouldn't be us that's pushing misinformation. It can't be. So I'll be working on that before the 18th. I will definitely have something out. So for now, there's a little brief video that's going to go out. Also, I worked on a video today about the opportunities to work in Romulus Community Schools. Particularly, we have 25 openings for paraprofessional. I believe Miss Hazlett said like childcare, wants to talk more about childcare, but it is paraprofessional positions from special ed that pay $14.50 something, 50, 60. I don't have it on me now. To general ed paraprofessionals. And this is a problem across the state and across the country. People don't want to be paraprofessionals. People don't want to come into work. People don't want to do that job. We've looked at some surrounding districts that have some advertising going on through their website, but they don't have a video. So we definitely have a video from the superintendent, from me, talking about how I started out, and that no position is more important than another position. We're all in this together, and we all have something to contribute. So I got that one done today. And then I also did one for our return to in-person learning. As I thank Dr. Sophia and Mr. Garland previously, I thank the entire cabinet for the tireless work that I saw them do. Tireless work on that. And I remind them, you can't make everybody happy. If you're in that business to make everybody happy, you're in the wrong business. That's not what this business is. We will do the best that we can for our families in terms of wellness, but people continue to expect the school district to be able to do everything to solve every need at home. We can't do that. Okay, we can't do that. We had to say no in some respects, in some areas, and I briefly touched on that, briefly on the video, but I will remind everybody, 1 vaccination in. On Saturday, I have 2 vaccinations in, but I still recognize that we are in a pandemic. People are asking us questions as though we're not. We are still in a pandemic. We cannot have situations where we're bringing kids from all over our schools and putting them into an aftercare situation in one room, and then one child gets sick. Then we have to figure out who do we have to quarantine. We brought all these kids in from different schools, and now we got to shut down our schools. That was the decision in terms of childcare. I know it inconveniences a lot of parents. I understand that. We understand that. But we also recognize that we're in a pandemic. You want to talk about next year? Next year, I would expect fully to have our daycares moving. It all depends on what happens, the mitigating of the virus. Okay, when this thing ends, then we're going to be back even stronger than before, even stronger. But I apologize in advance to any family that has been inconvenienced by our decisions. Dr. Laws is going to talk a little bit more in greater detail about our numbers. She might throw that out. But what we did today was officially the survey has closed. The survey window has closed. That's what my video says. Thanking the parents that participated. Thank you for trusting and believing in our school district, where since I've been here, I can't talk about previous to me, wellness has been the way that we make decisions on the wellness. But our governor has told us that we need to open up schools, and we had a good number of our parents respond. and I'll let Dr. Sophia talk about that. That's pretty much it in terms of my FYI. If there's any questions, you know that I will certainly answer them to the best of my ability. Otherwise, we can just go to the action items and let the board proceed with our meeting.
Dr. Edmondson, I have a few questions. One, thank you for doing the videos. I've personally heard positive feedback when you put announcements in videos. People in the community and our families like seeing you and hearing you deliver the message. And I know that maybe it's not always your favorite thing to do, but we appreciate, or maybe it is your favorite. I shouldn't assume to know. I'm moving right along. My questions are these. Do we have any idea when the city of Romulus might be getting back with us with the information we need for the tower?
I will let Mr. Garland, that's how you do a school board meeting. I don't have all the answers. I'll let Mr. Garland just kind of, naturally I've deferred to him on this matter.
Yeah, well, I reached out to Bob, and since then we've had a lot of snow and different things. So things slow down when the city is very busy. So I'll reach back out to him again. And Bob's usually excellent about getting back to me with that information. And I might be able also to get a little bit from Roberto as well. So I'm hoping we'll have information this week to pass on to the realtor.
Great, thank you. My other question is probably for Bill as well. The assessed value of Superior, when was our last assessment done? And I know that we don't want to give away property, but we have assessed values and we have appraisals of the property done. But in reality, our property is worth what the market will pay for it. So I want to know, is that a recent assessment that we have? And
yes, we actually will be receiving the Beverly Burton Center appraisal as well. That assessment or appraisal that we just received was just completed. And it took into account the condition of the building and versus the condition of the land. The land alone is worth $180,000. So that tells you what kind of shape that building is in. And we have serious interest in it by a group that actually trains Olympic athletes, wrestlers and different athletes like that. So we're hopeful. We're supposed to have another meeting with them and do a walkthrough of the building. We're going to gear up and go through it. But I was actually surprised that it was as high as it was, knowing the condition.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Because that building has been in poor shape.
Ms. Piles, before you continue, I know what you just said about, what the market and all that. And when people hear that, that's why they try to swoop on something and get it for $100,000 when it says it's 250, they say, oh, we'll give you 100. You can't look desperate. When you're desperate, somebody that wants it deserves it. Okay.
Right.
And the community deserves to know that when we sell our buildings, that we will sell them at the market value, at the market rate, and we will take that money and we will bring it back into the district and utilize it in a manner that they would expect.
Right. Yeah, I know some of our properties, we just hadn't had assessments done. We received an offer on that property that was so ridiculously low that no, we're not giving away the properties. So, and then my last question, Dr. Edmondson, was of the $8.2 million that's been secured in grants. Do you know what portion of that amount is outside of the grants that we normally receive? Have there been any additional that Ms. Miller has been able to get for us?
That would be a question that I will defer to Dr. Laws. I don't know if she can answer that offhand because she got here as well a little bit after me. If you can, Dr. Laws.
I think that most of it is the traditional grants that we've had in the past, the Title I, Title II, Title IV, 31A. But then in addition to those grants, specifically for this year, ESSER and GEARS. So ESSER is the federal CARES dollars. GEARS is the state dollars specifically for COVID. What she's really been instrumental in making sure happens for us this year is that many of our applications were overdue. They weren't submitted. in the time that they needed to be for this year, or the changes that needed to be made hadn't been made. There was a lot of cleanup with the previous grants that she really helped with this year. There was a recent grant that none of us knew about with the food service, for example. It came due all of a sudden. So there are like all these little things that have happened that she has. What's really wonderful is she has some great connections at the state level because she's been in this business for a long time. She knows so many people at the state. So she's been able to get us that extra time we need, or the extra support, or those kinds of things. So I wouldn't say there's anything necessarily new grants other than those that are COVID related, but it's really helping us to figure out what's been in the grants, what there were things that weren't supposed to be in the grants that needed to come out. So there's been a lot of that work that she's done.
And we haven't lost any money, which is a great thing. We haven't lost any money because of our negligence on dates and things.
Right.
And
We're very close in terms
more
of
things that I totally forgot. If you're all right with that, Ms. Piles, there are two things I forgot.
I'm sorry. Yes.
There are just two things. So hopefully either in the subcommittee meeting, Trustee Kennard or Trustee Terrell, or even Secretary Wester can talk about the CTE graphic that was done. I think they've had an opportunity to see it, but I'll let them discuss that. So that's important. But lastly, and most importantly, I want to say happy birthday to Paula Gutzman. She has been a dear friend to me since 2015, and we brought her along. She's like a sister to me and has had my back for the last 6 years. And I've always said that she will give her right leg for me, but I also said that I would give my right arm to her. But I want to thank her. My son's birthday is tomorrow, and for 6 years, Paula and I said that they had the same birthday. And then today I see some flowers or something come in for Paula. I'm like, oh no, please no. And it's her birthday today, so I will recognize it tomorrow. But Paula, thank you for everything that you do. Happy birthday to you. I told you the weekends deserve to be yours, but instead you always are faithful to our school district. And I thank you for that. But have yourself a great day with you and your husband. And here you are at the board meeting. You're doing what I would expect you to do. So thank you on behalf of everybody in our entire district. Of course.
Are you waiting? This is Trustee Kennard. Are you wanting me to? Are we on SRID?
I'm sorry. Would you repeat that, please?
Are we on the CTE? Are we on number 9, or we're still with?
Not yet.
No.
Okay, thank you.
No, we're giving the space for Paula's birthday currently. So happy birthday, Paula. And we're still under the report of the superintendent. So Dr. Edmondson, if you'd like to continue.
Finish. Let's get to these action items.
Okay, so we have the audit conclusion. If a board member has that motion handy and can read it, please.
This is Trustee Kennard. Recommended motion. Move that the Board of Education receive the audit report for the year ending June 30th, 2020, as audited by the independent accounting firm Raham Robson, and approve the related resolution concerning the rationale. Raham Robson, an independent accounting firm, has audited our financial statements for the year ended June 30th, 2020. The audited financial statement and single audit Act compliance report for this year end is included as a separate board attachment. This report will be posted on our website once ready for posting. The following resolution was recommended on February the 17th by the Rama auditors and was crafted by Troon Law Attorney Matthew Heiser. Additional details are available on attachment. Rahman's auditor, Dan Clark, will discuss this resolution at our board meeting. Budget implications, none, and the board has all of the exhibits.
Support by Wester.
If there is no discussion, we can move to the roll call.
Kennard,
Yes.
Terrell,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Piles,
Yes.
Wester is yes. Motion is approved.
Moving on to the retiree healthcare contributions, the recommended motion is that the Board of Education participate in the proposed IRS Office of Retirement Services closing agreement on 3% retiree healthcare contributions by approving for signature IRS Form 2848, Power of Attorney and Declaration of Representative. The rationale is that at our previous board meeting, Don Sovey, CPA, presented information on the 3% Office of Retirement Services issue. As indicated, it is a board decision whether it desires to participate. If the district elects to participate, proposed IRS Form 2848 must be signed and the board would need to take action to move forward. Is there a motion in support?
Support.
Kennard.
Supported by Kennard.
Okay, is there any need for discussion? Mr. Sovey covered this with us last meeting, so unless there are questions, Ms. Wester, if you do the roll call vote on that, please.
Kennard,
Yes.
All right, we are, y'all.
Terrell,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Piles,
Yes.
Wester, yes. Motion is approved.
Thank you. We also have a recommended motion for our audit additional fees. So I move that the Board of Education approve the change order Raymond for the estimated additional fees in the amount of $25,000 to $30,000 for additional hours related to audit coverages. The change order replaces the change order dated January 15th, 2021 for estimated additional fees of $10,000 to $15,000. And the rationale is the presented change order from our auditors is for the additional fees for additional hours related to audit coverages. Raymond Auditor Daniel Clark has confirmed that this change order replaces the change order dated January 5th, 2021. School and Municipal Advisory Services CPA CFO Donald Sobey shared the following email, and we can see that the unforeseen record-keeping problems and additional assurance they needed to issue their report. Based on the magnitude of the issues, I believe this to be reasonable, and then you can read on. So there's the motion. Is there support?
Support, Wester.
Is there any discussion? If not, we can move to the vote, please.
Terrell,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Piles,
Yes.
Wester, yes. Motion is approved.
Okay, and our last action item under the report of the superintendent is the COVID-19 preparedness and response plan. Does a board member have that motion to read, please?
Recommended motion, move that the Board of Education approve the presented RCS COVID-19 preparedness and response plan. Rationale, Superintendent Benjamin Edmondson will revise the extended learning plan. Budget application, none. Exhibit, updated plan will be forwarded to the board prior to the meeting.
Support.
Terrell,
Moved by Kennard, supported by Terrell. Unless there's discussion,
I
we
have a
can,
couple questions, Ms. Piles.
yes.
This is Ms. Evans. Can I ask how the lunches will be handled when we return? Lunches for the students and staff.
Ms. Laws, will these items be in your presentation when we move to the return to in-person learning?
That specific topic is not on my presentation. I'm really talking about the numbers in terms of parents' responses. But I do believe Mr. Garland can respond to that. It was also in our parent guidance packet that we provided as well.
Yes, we are going to make some final, now that we have our numbers, we're going to make some final decisions coming up at a meeting on Wednesday. We needed to know how many students we would have returning and if we can socially distance based on those numbers within the cafeteria. We are also looking to secure through SFE some lunch monitors, and we're working on that as well. So I know that we can get that information to you relatively quickly, but we are scheduled to have that final meeting on Wednesday.
Okay, and then what about the busing? That's all? We're fine with buses?
We're working on that as well. We pretty much have our information. Ms. Laws is going to speak to you on that a little bit.
Okay.
About start times and that, which are tentative, but we're working with our bus department on that as at this present time as well, because we're just getting the actual participation of students who will be returning.
Okay.
So those things are high priority on our hot list, and we're working to get everything in place so that we can have a nice, smooth start coming up.
And then also staff illness or exposures, will they be permitted to work from home or will they be required to take sick days?
This is a team effort, and I think Ms. Hazlett will respond to that one.
Okay.
Sorry.
And do we know what the percentage of students that want to come back face to face yet? Do we know that percentage?
That's part of my report this evening, Board Member Evans.
Okay, thank you.
This is Trustee Kennard. I have a question. I don't know who exactly can answer this, maybe Mr. Garland, but I've had some inquiries from residents pertaining to actually what that day or what that room or what the facilities will look like, in terms of the social distancing, particularly in the classroom and in every areas. Some schools have, some districts have rooms where they call sick rooms or something like that. And I don't know if we are having that some classrooms, the desks, arranged different with plexiglass, whatever. So there's just, I know we're going to have some form of conversation, I believe. I saw an email or something where, they could, ask questions, but, those are the type of the things that people were asking is like, what exactly, would that look like? We know we have to have some safety, whatever, but what exactly in terms of walk us through it?
Yeah, Ms. Kennard, we put out a video for parents that answered a lot of those questions, pretty straightforward. We are following the CDC's and the health department's requirements and even exceeding them in many ways. Ms. Laws is going to discuss some of those features, but we do have a video that parents can go to, and so many of those things that you ask are there. About the partitions and about some really unique and special things that we've done that other districts are just now trying to catch up with us, such as putting those plasma bipolar ionizers in, which are outstanding. So hopefully we can direct them to those videos.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to the board, the next, I know there's an action item out there, but the next one, Dr. Laws will be able to address everything and the team. So it's not just her feeling all the pressure. All the questions that you have, we'll be glad to answer because we know that people are asking you the same questions. So she's prepared to go over that with Mr. Garland and Ms. Hazlett, and we'll throw Mr. Cooper in there as a bonus too.
Yes, and this response plan is something that boards are required to discuss and update and we've been discussing this as we prepare to learn. So this is something that we discuss and we approve monthly. Even though we've remained virtual, we've still been planning to go back face to face. So this is part of that and separate from the return to learning, which Dr. Laws will cover if she doesn't have any connection issues and disappear now. But no, thank you. I know Dr. Laws and Mr. Garland have really worked a lot with Dr. Edmondson on this. So thank you all for that.
Vice President Powell's, the preparedness and response plan is only for February. So it's really going backwards that you just approving.
Right. But we revisit this.
Yeah, March is going to look very different, but it'll be, the March one is for March with all of this new stuff.
Right. And we,
Okay, roll call vote.
Any more discussion? If not, let's call the vote, please.
Terrell,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Piles,
Yes.
Wester, yes. Motion is approved.
Okay. And now we are on to the report of the Executive Director of Instructions. So Dr. Laws, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the questions ahead of time. And hopefully between myself and everyone else on the team, we can do a good job of answering all your questions. First, I want to also just thank everyone. I mean, the efforts that have been put in place in terms of planning for return to in-person learning have involved everyone, and not just our cabinet, but our building principals and teachers that have worked with our building principals have all been working together on the next steps for our return to in-person. So one of the things I want to do, a couple of things that I want to share with you tonight. I'm going to share the information about the parent declarations. I think that we've all been saying we really need that information, really need to understand our parents' intentions so that we can make even more specific plans. But we also have been working towards this all along and been putting many things in place. So I'm going to share my computer with you, if that's okay, my screen with you, and start with our website. Everybody can see that okay? It's loading. So this is our homepage of our website. Anyone who goes to our website, this is the first thing that they're going to see is these three options. So we have developed a return to in-person learning website, which went live last week. And we shared this information with our families and our teachers. And if you scroll down, this is the place that we're recommending everyone go to gather the information that they need. We had a Parent Connect help video that Mr. Cooper created to help guide parents on how to make their declarations. In addition to the videos, he sent reminders, text messages, robocalls. Our principals sent emails out to families. They fielded phone calls with questions. In addition, we took questions from the parent community, and we also posted a return to in-person learning Q&A video with Mr. Garland and myself. So again, more questions were answered there. And then we've also developed a return to in-person learning guidebook, which actually answers some of the questions that you already posed this evening. It talks about, classrooms and just general information. But in addition to this, each of our schools are working with their staff on specifics, because each school is going to look a little different, right? So what happens at the elementary level in terms of breakfast and lunch is going to look slightly different than what happens at the middle school and the high school. But part of being able to really plan for the next step is understanding how many people were selecting to come in person. And so we try to provide as many resources as possible to everyone so that they could make those selections as informed as possible, recognizing that there would be not answers to every single question that that people have, but how can we give them as much information as possible to make their decision? So, we ask people go to the Return to In-Person Learning Guidebook, but for additional questions, also to reach out to their building principal, because that building principal is going to really be able to answer for their school what something might look like in terms of lunch. For example, Romulus L has a different setup than WIC. So, that we've said, talk to your building principals about some of those specific information of what it might look like. For example, also parent pickup and drop off. That's going to look different at each school depending on the layout of the school and how they're going to organize their social distancing for that. But all of the decisions that are being made, all of the plans that are being made at the building level is all based around CDC guidelines, all based around social distancing. Based upon the recommendations provided to us, again, through Wayne County Health Department and so forth. So all of that information is here on our webpage. And then additionally, what we have posted and want to talk specifically about tonight as well is our tentative return to in-person learning. We put tentative because we know we need to bring this to the board and have that approved by the board. But based on all of our planning, based on our discussions and where we're at today, having had conversations with transportation this morning, looking at those preliminary numbers, which I will show you in just a moment, talking about our plans for food service. And even though we don't have all the exact details worked out, we have been in contact with food service all along. So they've kind of been in the loop in terms of where we're headed, understanding that overall we were expecting that we would have about 50 to 60% of our building capacity wanting to come back to in person. And that's about where we're at. We're going to take a look at that. So I'm going to come back to this document, but just to share with you again, all of the information that parents need and staff need. The roadmap is a great tool here also from Wayne County that helps guide us with guidelines, all of those things we've been following and using to help us as we make our decisions. So I want to share with you our parent declaration. So what we ask parents to do is and again, through all kinds of messaging, and we've said, go into MyStar. We were able to create a tool in MyStar that allowed parents to make their choice. Do you want to be in person or remain virtual? And if you choose in person, then there's some things that you are agreeing to. So we have a parent pact that talks through expectations of, students, if they come in person, are required to wear masks, parents are required to do the COVID-19 daily checks. So there's all these requirements that if you want your child to come in person, you're going to agree to the parent pact. Do you need bus transportation? Yes or no? That was in that declaration. And again, we had that open. We said through last night, but we actually left it open through today. We sent information out to principals this morning with every single one of who has responded so far and who has not, so they could make one last push out to their parents. They were making phone calls, reaching out to make sure, did parents make the declarations? And then based on that information, we said today was going to be it in terms of making your choice. And that if you chose not to make a declaration, that you defaulted to virtual. And what we expected to happen happened. Most of the people that have responded are those that want in person. And then from there, there's a lot that I believe have defaulted to virtual, which is similar. Our numbers are similar to what we had when we first asked families, just a general survey of tell us right now where you're at. We did that about a month ago. We said, just give us a general idea of if you're thinking in person or virtual or some, combination thereof. And then once we said, okay, now we really need you to finalize your decision, those decisions were very similar to where we were at about a month ago with how many people said virtual and how many said in person. So I'm going to share with you my screen again. Just give me a second. Okay, can we see where it says return to in-person learning mode district? Is everyone seeing that? Okay. So this information is a report that's pulled directly from MyStar. It was last updated around 5:30 today after we made that final close. So what you can see here, this is going to be consistent in the different levels of reporting that I show you. Blue stands for how many people chose in person. Black stands for how many chose virtual. And green means how many did not respond at all. So we had 865 families total. So I shouldn't say families, I should say for student selections, because you could have multiple per family. 865 have chosen in person. 342 have gone in and selected virtual, which leaves 1,025 that would be virtual as well because they didn't make a selection. If I click here, we can break that down by level a little bit more. So we can see for each school, Barth Elementary was at 176 in person, Hale Creek 101, Romulus L 122, Romulus High School 187, the middle school 164, and WIC 115. And then each principal has access to their school report and can not only break this down by grade level, and I can do that as well, break down by grade level, but actual teacher. So they can see how many per teacher have made requests to be in person. And so when we looked at this, when I looked at this late this afternoon, and just again, each time I take a look at it, our highest numbers are still at about what we had expected. About 50% of our classes would be at the elementary level, would be the most that would be requesting in terms of capacity. So I want to make sure we understand capacity, right? So how many we can get in a classroom versus how many are actually wanting to come back in person. So you can kind of see these numbers again. So if I click on Barth Elementary, because it's our highest one requesting in person, so I'll do them. You can see the blue. So the highest is 5th grade at 35 total, but that's spread out among 3 different 5th grade teachers. So we can actually go into and see of each of these 35 students, how many are requesting in person per teacher. And so when you actually start to break those down, you're looking at 13, 14 at the most, 15, I think in a couple of instances, which again is more than low enough in terms of our ability to social distance 6 feet apart within the classroom. So our next step is really to look at implementing. Well, first of all, I have questions about the chart. I see some hands up, so I think I'll take those questions before I move to the phases.
Mine was up by mistake. I'm sorry.
Okay, I do have a question. It's Ms. Evans again.
Yeah.
So I had some parents contact me saying that they were getting errors, failure to send as a response to their submission. I questioned if there were hard copies available for parents to fill out. Unfortunately, I didn't get a response, but I still have parents wondering if their children they say they think they signed up. How do they know who to call? Yeah. And I've got grandparents calling me saying, I don't know how to do this, and just give me a form that I can sign. So are those hard copies available?
So we didn't have hard copies because we really need to be able to collect the information in a way that we can get our hands on quickly. So what we did was, that is one of the reasons why we sent this information to principals this morning, for them to make follow-up phone calls to families of anyone who was still struggling with getting into MyStar. We had tech support available over the weekend, and we were all, our principals, everybody was answering emails and connecting with families to make sure that they had what they needed. Additionally, what we're going to do tomorrow, I've already drafted it, but now that we have closed it, we are going to, we're able to put, we've been working this afternoon on pulling a way to report who to send to families. Basically what you're asking is to send to families, this is what we have down for you. We have that you have selected in person, we have that you have selected virtual, and so forth. And then send them that verification. Mr. Cooper, I see your hand is up. Did you want to add to that?
Yes, also in the MyStar Parent Connection, at any given time, you can go in there and see the selection that they had already made, both in the mobile version and in if they did it from a desktop computer. It was always available, and technically changes could have been made by a parent at any time during the whole entire enrollment process with it. So in the videos, I explained how to go back and see their selections that they made. Only on the mobile version, because it's the mobile version of it, do they actually have to submit the submit button. And again, I tried to stress that during the videos.
Thank you.
Ms. Terrell, did you have a question?
I do. So, I'm just trying to get some clarification. You're with what Mr. Cooper said, and then basically piggybacking on what Ms. Evans said. We do have some grandparents or even some parents that may be a little bit technically challenged as far as getting into those different things. Those people, everyone that has not responded, they're receiving a phone call. Is that correct?
Exactly. We had all of our schools reach out to anyone that was on the non-report list. And we had a lot today of emails, of contacts, of anybody over the weekend who was struggling, that had reached out via email to Ms. we had emails to Ms. Kennedy, to building principals, to our tech support. So we reached out. So it didn't close today. It didn't close last night. We actually kept it open and continued to reach out to all of our families today. And so then tomorrow we're going to send out again, a confirmation saying this is what you selected. If there's an error, if there's something, that we need to do to support you, then we'll go in and make those changes with them. I mean, we've even had like secretaries calling families and walking them through and doing the selection for them over the phone. So
Great.
We haven't just, left them out there. We're saying we'll do whatever we can to get their declarations in.
Thank you.
Mr. Cooper, I see you nodding. Were you adding anything, or are you just nodding?
No, I was agreeing with you because my text quite a bit actually helped out parents, as they made a phone call in trying to get their PIN and their password. The text would actually help them make the selection right there on the phone with them, and sometimes would actually log in for them while they had them on the phone and make the selection for them, because they could, technically could do that too. So
one of the things that we did discuss though is with if parents can't get on to MyStar, that means they haven't been getting on to MyStar either. We've got to find a way to make certain that that's the way that we communicate. That's the way that you're going to get your information. To me, it says a lot if a parent says, "Oh, I don't know how to get on." You need to know how to get on, because that's how you get your information. So we're working with parents on that, but a lot of the things that we do will be through MyStar. So we've got to get them acclimated to doing it, as opposed to saying, "Oh, we'll just do this for you. That doesn't work because of what MyStar is.
Mm-hmm. We also had, even teachers were reaching out. I mean, I talked to principals today who had the teachers reaching out individually as well to their families, especially at the elementary level too. So we really, I said all hands on deck today. I sent text messages to everybody, like whatever you can do to reach families to get their declarations is so critical that we know. But again, if they know that they default to virtual, then that there's not necessarily for those that may have just said, okay, well, I'm going virtual anyways. I don't need to take the time to, to go in and the numbers really do reflect what we expected in terms of our original survey. So we're very close. So if there's a few families here or there, we're not going to turn them away. We definitely by tomorrow want to have it absolutely finalized. And it's so critical because when we look at all of the other decisions that are being made, the bus routes, pulling that information for busing, and our transportation department being able to develop their schedules based on everyone who selected yes in the system. Those are things that we have to have a quick turnaround on. Again, the same thing with when we look at the number of kids per teacher and by classroom. We need that information in that format. So now we can take a look and see, is there anywhere where we might have to make a class change? At this point, we don't think so. We think we're in good shape in terms of being able to social distance, and everybody who has said they want to come back to in-person can do so based on these numbers. But again, being able to break that down by teacher to make sure that we're not, one teacher's super high and one is super low if we need to make some slight adjustments in class schedules. It's our goal not to impact class schedules as much as possible. But again, we need that information in a systematic way that we can organize it based on our data, on all of our data tools. So, based on where we're at right now and the conversations we had today, we feel as a cabinet level and talking with principals that we're in good shape to move forward with some of these decisions that we need to make with food service and things like that. But those are all in process, that based on the information that we have, based on the numbers that have come through, that we are comfortable with going ahead to make the recommendation with the plan that we have recently discussed, which is our tentative return to in-person learning phases. So I'll just share that document. I believe board members have that, but just so we can all be on the same page.
I'm sorry, Dr. Laws, may I ask one question?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry, Ms. Files.
No, you're fine. Let me lower my hand back. So you said that our numbers are very similar to what was indicated on that original survey. And if you don't know this, that's right now, that's fine. Do you know in that original survey how many non-responses we had? I know you mentioned this time we had 1,025. Did we have that many the first time around as well?
We had more non-responses. We had a better response to this. We have more information this time around than we did on the initial survey.
Okay.
So the initial survey, we had, I think we talked about 20% response, when here we're at 50% response. So we definitely have more now than we had the first time.
Great. And one other question is, before we started looking at responses, did we determine a number, a cap on the number of students that would be in any one classroom?
We didn't pick a number, Ms. Piles. We stayed away from a number because depending on the school and the classroom would determine the number for that school or classroom. And so what we said was we would look at how did it come back for us? Could we, based on the responses we got, could we social distance based on those responses? And we expected no more than 50, perhaps 60% of capacity, because we haven't been running at capacity anyway. I mean, a lot of our class sizes are smaller. So we said, we're not going to give a specific number, but we will look at, once we get our numbers, if we don't feel like we can social distance at 6 feet, 3 to 6 feet, but really 6 feet is our goal. Then we would come back and say, okay, do we need to look at going to a cohort model because what we do want to do is we want to ensure that everyone who wants to come in person has the opportunity to be in person, because I think we all believe that that is what's going to be beneficial for our students, at all levels. And when we talk about the social emotional needs with in-person learning, the benefits of being able to come back in person. And so we didn't want to just say, okay, well, because you made the deadline and you didn't, you're in and you're out. We really wanted to say, what can we do to ensure that every child, every family who wants the opportunity for in-person learning can have it. And so we said, if we hit a point, within the deadline, right? Because we do at some point have to cut it off to be able to start to move forward. But within the deadline, if we have more than capacity, then we would look at going to a cohort model. We haven't hit that.
All right. Were we thinking to safely distance would be roughly 50% of what was currently in there? Is that, because I know even with our elementary buildings, Rommel would definitely have lower numbers that we could safely distance than our other 3 buildings because of the size of those classrooms.
I think we were pretty much thinking, like, if you would think 15 to 16 kids is about 50% of a class size, because you can run, most of our classes are, anywhere from 25 to 32 at the elementary level. But I think our goal was we wanted to stay around. I get a little nervous about getting an exact number, because then someone will say, oh, that was 17. And
no,
right.
Yeah. I just didn't know if going in, here's kind of where we feel safe or not. That's fine. That's fair.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah. Mr. Cooper, you had your hand up. Were you going to add something?
I was just going to add that, I've been part of all the surveys we've been doing since the start of all this COVID, and this is by far the greatest response we've gotten out of all the different surveys we've ran from the spring all the way up until now.
Okay. So, Ms. Terrell, I think it's Ms. Terrell. Is it Ms. Terrell or Ms. Kennard? Ms. Terrell has her hand up. Okay, so I'm showing the tentative return to in-person learning recommendation, and we talked about 4 phases, but we kind of collapsed them a little bit in talking about what it would look like to actually implement. We made some adjustments from the last board meeting to this one. So I just want to talk through that just a little bit real quickly. So phase 1 is similar to what we originally posed, which was that Romulus Early Childhood Center and Special Education K-12 self-contained would be the first to start with the in-person, partially because Rommel is just on a different, they have different parameters, and so not Romulus L, but Romulus Early Childhood Center has different requirements and parameters that they are able to put in place. Their staff is different. They just have different processes. So they're ready to go with starting on next Monday. Again, utilizing all of the safety precautions and following all the guidelines. And then the same thing with our special education K-12 self-contained classes. Those students had actually been in for a little while, if you recall. And then when some things happened in November with the cases rising, they went to virtual. So they've been in person previously as well. And so they're pretty much ready to go. And Ms. Broaden is indicated that that group is ready and confident to be prepared for Monday, March 1st. Then towards the end of the week, what we talked about was a need to provide some transition time for our different grade levels that have not been in school at all. So kindergartners who would be coming in person have never been in school with Romulus this year. 6th graders and 9th graders have never been in their respective schools this year. So we wanted to offer some transition time. So what we would look at is for Thursday, March 4th and 5th, the kindergartners would be the only ones in the building for in-person, to give them that time, to give everyone time to just help them get acclimated with coming into a school building before they're around everyone else, and also trying to teach them social distancing and all of that, give them a couple of days in the building. And then the following week, you would start with your 1st through 5th grade students. And I also noted Barth Elementary, because of the ACE program, does have some 6th graders. So those 6th graders would come to Barth that week of March 8th. Again, later that week, transitioning your 6th graders and your 9th graders. So they'd have 2 days, Thursday and Friday, in the building. again, giving staff the opportunity to do some orientations with those students, and just provide them a little bit of getting acclimated. And then by the third phase, Monday, March 15th, everybody else that is coming in person would start to come in person. It also gives our transportation department time to make adjustments. It also gives our food service time to make adjustments, so that it's not all happening at one time, but that as we're making these plans, that they have time to ramp up. We have time to, again, continue working on adding needed staff that we've been trying to add to our rosters. As Dr. E mentioned, he did a video today, and we're trying to, bring in paraeducators, and we need more food service support, like lunch moms, dads, those kinds of people. So it gives us a little bit of time to ramp those up as we add more buildings. So we didn't want to just start everybody at once. And so that's what we're recommending in terms of our return to in-person learning.
Dr. Laws, when you talk about the hiring the additional staff, just so we're clear with the food service specifically, is that something the district is looking, or individual buildings are looking to hire, or does our food service company provide that staffing for us?
Want me to take that?
Yes.
So at this juncture, it's been very difficult, as everyone knows, to get people hired. A lot of people are nervous. Generally, we hired a lot of older people, grandparents and that, to work in those positions. But we're working now with SFE to secure through them lunch monitors that would be there. And so they're putting out they're going to send me a copy of it, posting a job, supposed to go out tonight or first thing tomorrow. So we're really trying to get that done so that we can give our teachers a break, and also have our kids be able to go outside and enjoy some fresh air once the weather breaks.
Yes, thank you for that, Bill.
I don't know, Ms. Hazlett might want to add something about the paraeducators and some of the other.
Yes, thank you. So in addition, this was part of why we were trying to hire the general paraeducator role for our elementaries, trying to hire between 3 to 5 people. We have a variety of positions posted, whether you can do it full-time or part-time. We wanted to create the most amount of flexibility for our community, and why I then asked Dr. Edmondson to make a video for us so that we can push that out there. So the idea is, if we have 3 to 5 paraeducator people in the building, then that's not only going to help us with respect to any COVID situations and manning our quarantine room, but also any other overflow, so that if there is additional support that needs to occur in the lunchroom, or additional support in the hallways, if we do have students transitioning, which we likely won't, but we may. So we wanted to be prepared for all of those things, and trying to ensure that we have the kind of support staff there to assist our teachers. We weren't sure how challenging it might also be for them in terms of the early elementary, the kindergarten and first graders. So do remember that our first graders who were kindergartners last year did not have a full year, and again are starting this year. Those school routine ideas are really what we're hoping to provide the support. So we've gone back and reposted our positions to give greater flexibility depending on what our community is looking for, and trying to attract and recruit from our community to assist us as we get ready for the return to in-person learning.
And Ms. Hazel, I think there was a question earlier about teachers and quarantining versus, if something happens with a teacher.
Right. And so there is a wonderful tool that walks us through 8 different scenarios of exposure to everything from household members to classroom to potential exposure. That's really pretty complicated yes/no kind of scenario that we have to go through. But in addition to that, we're meeting with our teachers as a whole, as a representative group, to talk about some of these very specific things that come up once you start thinking about children coming back in person. and how are we going to handle certain things, and how are we going to communicate that. So we also have that meeting scheduled with them on Wednesday so that we can talk in greater detail about those very specific things, because those are questions. So, you know, it's not a simple yes or no answer with respect to if a teacher is exposed, what happens next, because it's really predicated on many other factors in terms of what exactly that exposure looks like, how long ago was it, you know, those other contributing aspects that would then make our decision with respect to that. So we were just working through that with the principals on Friday, giving a number of different scenarios, trying to walk through the flow chart so that they could understand and practice, you know, what that's going to look like. And there's going to be a lot of questions that we're going to need to ask and information we're going to need to garner before we can go through the flow charts and figure out what's the right advice, what's the right next decision that we need to do, whether it's a student or a staff member. So that's going to be an ongoing aspect that we're going to be managing as we go forward with our students returning to in-person.
Thank you, Ms. Hazlett. I see a few hands that have come up.
Hi, it's Sue Evans.
Yes.
There was a quarantine room referenced. Where are they in the buildings? Who will be manning them? How many do we have per building? Just trying to reach out there to see what that scenario looks like.
You're muted, Ms. Hazlett.
Thank you. I click it in the wrong place. That's what happens. My little microphone. So that again, so we're looking to identify a space that is a quarantine room. So not multiple spaces, but a space in terms of personal protective equipment that we will have, and some training that we plan on providing to our staff who are going to be manning our quarantine room. And the idea is really that it's a temporary holding place, separate from other students, separate from our staff, and then we're reaching out to our parent community to come and pick up their child if we suspect that they have those symptoms, and being on the cautious side with respect to COVID. So again, not looking at, identifying multiple spaces, having a key space that's identified, and then properly training our staff and providing them with personal protective equipment in order for them to man those spaces.
So our staff would be doing, so someone within the staff, existing staff?
No, we're looking to hire for that, because we really, the paraeducator support that we have in our buildings today is really specifically for special education. I'm sure that was a funding issue for us over the years. So what we're looking to hire are general education paraprofessionals who can assist us with this. So there's training available through the Michigan Health and Human Services Department. There's been a determination made that you do not have to be a medical professional or have a medical degree in order to fulfill that training and make those assessments. And that was really what we wanted to be cognizant of as we go forward. So we think that we have the tools and the training. Now we just have to get the people to apply so that we can support them with that and be able to support our teachers and our students in the buildings.
Do we have any applicants where the documentation just has to be completed? Or what status do we have for those 25 openings? Do we have anybody that's applied?
Yeah, so when we originally posted for them, we were looking for less than 30 hours, which, as some of you may know, is the predictor. If you're at 30 hours or more, then there's a benefit package involved with that. And so when we were looking at doing this, we started first with just below 30 hours, and we didn't get a response. So we had maybe 2 applicants for all of the positions. So we just went back and reposted in both ways, both for full-time and for part-time. And then, as I said, asked Dr. Edmondson to do a video for us to promote it out there. This is a common challenge in school districts today because of the concern and fear around the whole COVID virus and the fear of exposure, and not just in public schools. I mean, this is a problem and a concern in other industries as well, just trying to hire and recruit people to start working in the work environment. If you can't provide 100% working from home opportunity, if you have to have people physically in your facility in order to do the work, then it's been a very challenging time in the last 7 to 8 months to hire people. And, signing bonuses don't overcome the fear. So our approach is to try to really broaden the idea that it's a caregiver role. We'll provide the training. Don't let the title of the position scare you away. We're just looking for people who like children, who want to make a difference in the world, and we'll provide the training, we'll provide the support. We're not going to leave you out there without any support. And so that's the approach that we're trying to take in order to recruit people to come and join our team.
So with the inability to fill I shouldn't say inability, but because we aren't getting a big return on our requests, what is the substitution, what are we going to do about subs? How are we with that? Are they out there to come in?
So basically where we are with the subs is because so many school districts were doing virtual, it's been a complete reverse situation for our subs because there haven't been enough jobs, there hasn't been enough work. So I think that part of it we're going to be okay with, because again, we're still not 100% of all of our students in place. There are still several schools that are doing some form of virtual. So I don't think we're in the same kind of competition for that particular pool of employees. So I think we're going to be okay with respect to that in terms of availability of people to sub for us.
Ms. Haslam, I'm sorry. Are you finished, Ms. Evans?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
I had a question to piggyback off of the room. We're going to identify one room per building for quarantine. How will we differentiate? I mean, students get sick with fevers, earaches, flu, things that could mimic symptoms that are not. So are we going to put them all in the same room and potentially expose somebody with an ear infection to COVID, or how will we handle that? Or will they go to the office, or what is the plan?
So the plan is that we're going to provide training because, as I shared with you and just a little bit ago, there are tools from the Wayne County Health Division that you go through a series of questions to try to assess those. I mean, if I'm 6 years old and I have a stomach ache, we're going to send you to the office. We're going to follow our protocol. We're going to contact your parent regardless, right? But if I'm presenting those other symptoms and we think that it's more likely to be COVID related or in the COVID family, then we're going to put you in the quarantine room and follow that protocol. So, it's a tough thing because the whole time the issue with COVID has been that other illnesses also have those symptoms. And so we're not going to get away from that. We're just going to try to act as prudently as we can, put the protocols in place to help with the decision making. The principal also is not absent from this process. We're just trying to have a lead person there that would escort the child from the classroom down to our quarantine room and then, go through the protocol. But also, the principal is in the consulting role with respect to that for students. I'm going to be in the consulting role for anything related to staff. So, we're just trying to make sure that we have those pieces in there because there are going to be a lot of unknowns, and we're probably going to err if we make errors on the side of being more prudent with respect to COVID than, something else. But, sometimes a 6-year-old loses a tooth and they're bleeding and they want to go home. Okay, right? I mean, you don't have a stomach ache, you don't have a fever, you don't have these other things, right? Okay, so we don't think that's COVID, so we're going to go in another direction. But often, those stomach illnesses are hard to assess, what's going on. So we're going to err on the side of prudent and follow our protocol.
And how long is that training? Is it a one-day training? Is it number of hours? Do you know what that training is?
No, I don't have those specifics in place yet. I'm just first trying to recruit people, get the people here. And then, it's probably more in the half-day realm to go through those protocols and scenarios to help them feel prepared.
Right. And do we have procedures in place if a student is feeling ill in class? Do they just escort themselves to the quarantine room? Do we have trained staff who come and get them and walk them directly there so we don't have students roaming? Do we have those protocols in place?
So that's what we're trying to hire the paraeducators for, those paraprofessional positions, so that we do not have a student or a teacher that has to leave the room, right? I mean, that doesn't work either.
Right.
So that's what that support is really about, so that you would be able to escort the children to the quarantine room if that's what we need to do and make that assessment.
Have we
We
looked?
also have, can I just add real quick on that one? Ms. Hazlett worked with us as well on a flow chart that we have that we've provided to principals as well on regards to, okay, if a student presents with symptoms in the classroom, here's what they need to do. Here's who they need to contact. Here's, step by step, this is what you need to do. So there's a flow chart that we've created that we've shared with principals. We haven't put it on our website yet because we want to make sure it looks good, but we've identified the need so that if a teacher is presented with a situation, here is what they need to know what to do.
Right. And my last question is, I know, Ms. Hazlett, you stated how we have these positions, but there is a fear of exposure and a hesitancy for people to apply and resume working again, especially multiple days a week. At the last time we met, 10% of our staff felt comfortable returning. Have we surveyed our staff again to find out what the percentage is currently? So that I know we are offering families a choice. We're not offering staff. And so I want to make sure that all return to learn that there is no fear-based decisions happening. So do we have updated information with that?
We have not surveyed our staff again in that kind of a formal way, but we do stay in communication with them. And also, when we were working at the building level and our teachers were participating in what could it look like before we got to this point, there's a strong sense on both sides, for some teachers who feel very strongly about how important it is for their students to come back for in-person learning, for some of the kinds of instruction that they want to do, for their concerns about some of our students for whom school is a safe and supportive place for them to be, balanced with the concern about exposure. And I think as we move forward with making the vaccines available for our staff at Romulus, I'm hoping that that has helped to alleviate some of that. I mean, we're not going to be able to eradicate fear out of everybody's heart over this. I mean, it's a pandemic. So, there's a certain aspect of that that's going to be there, but we do feel a commitment to trying to provide this opportunity to our students. And, we have a fair amount of our instructional staff who feel that as well, who also feel, the concern that we all have with respect to the pandemic. And so we're just trying to find the balance. But no, we haven't gone back and done another survey. And it's similar when we initially asked staff if they would be willing to get a vaccine, right? We're just trying to get a head count to share with the Wayne County Health Division. So we went out to our staff and I said, if there was a vaccine, what are your plans? Do you think you would get one? Well, that was a fine question to ask. And our response in terms of people who are willing to do that wasn't 100%. But then once the vaccine became available and now it was real as opposed to an idea, we had a higher participation of staff involved in that than our initial survey had indicated that they would. And, I think that that's only a natural human thing to happen. I mean, once it's a reality, it looks a little different to me than if you're just asking me the idea. And, there continues to be interesting information out there about the pros and cons of being vaccinated. Something that has been a discussion item far, in school districts, far, ahead of this pandemic that we're in now. But again, we're trying to show that we're prepared. We're trying to show with Mr. Garland's help what we're doing to clean and make the buildings as healthy as they can be. And we're trying to ensure that we have a plan in place for what to do when you face those circumstances and how we're communicating that.
Sure.
Because, we're in this together. It's only going to work if we're going to do this together. Right. And that's what we've been striving to do.
Right. And we can't eradicate fear. I mean, obviously, there's some of that will be diminished as we are back in safe environments. My concern is our proposal is to begin phase 1 a week from today. So are we able to safely do it when we have so many positions that people have not yet applied for, and we don't have those safety protocols in place yet? We don't know how long the training will take. We don't even have the people to train. My concern is when we do this, I want to do it safely, and we can't eradicate fear, but we can present facts and evidence of the precautions we've taken to make it safe. So I'm concerned with being a week out. We don't even have the people to train yet, nor do we know what's involved in training them.
Hey, Debbie, can I piggyback? Can I come in? I've been doing this all year. So as it relates to your health room, yes, you may need a couple extra bodies. When it comes, my tummy hurts. I'll take a temperature, and if it's just a tummy ache, if we need to call mom, we call mom, or hey, go back to class and see what we can do. Now, if they come down when you have that checklist that you're looking on, and they have 2 of those symptoms, they say, my stomach hurts, I have a headache. They go to the wellness room, and that's the first thing you do, that you call mom. They have to come pick them up. According to the number of days out, they have to be out 10 days unless they go to the doctor and say that they just had upset stomach and have a doctor's note to come back. It seems like it's a lot. The thing is the flow chart, because each child is going to be different. Each case, each scenario is going to be different. When it comes down to training, I'm kind of like Ms. Hazelet. You're probably looking at a half a day, because you're just teaching them the very basics of what it is they're going to be looking for. And even when it comes to, if we don't have the people that can bring them down to the office, sometimes if there's a buddy system, or you can call down to the office and say, hey, Miss Ursula, I have little Johnny that's not feeling well. Can you come down and pick him up? So in that aspect, we may be utilizing our staff that we currently have to do that. And like she said, it's going to be hard to fill those positions, because you do have people that are afraid to come in. They're going to want to fill a position for a substitute teacher versus a para when you look at the pay scale. It's going to be trial and error. We're going to have to take it one day at a time and see. There's not going to be any one right way or wrong way. This is going to be trial and error. That's why it's good to bring them back in the stages that we're bringing them back, because then we can start to teach a little bit. We learn more and more each day when we go through the process.
And I will note that next week, the group that would be coming back is only, Early Childhood Center, like they have all those positions. They have the paras in place already, because that's something they already have.
That's their building.
And the self-contained class is the same thing. So you're just looking at next week, kindergarten, Thursday and Friday. So you're talking about at each level, about 24 students, 24 to 28 students for next week. And then the week after that would start to look at bringing them back. The beauty of this, the way it's phased out, and I recognize the concerns, is the things that we talked about today, is where are we at with staffing, and do we feel like we can do this, is that we can always back things out a week, right? If we feel like, but that's the part of the decisions that we are going to have to make. We do have to at some point say, okay, this is the date. And we could run into the same situation where we don't have all the positions filled, but what are the contingencies? And principals are aware of that as well. What staff are they going to utilize in the interim? Do we look at getting we also have building subs already at schools. Right. So looking at utilizing some of our existing building subs for some of those until we get, all the positions filled. But we do recognize that might continue to be a challenge for us, which is why we never wanted to go more than 50% of our capacity of looking at how many kids are there within a classroom. Again, that 15 to 16 number.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add that a good portion of that training is just learning how to use proper PPE, and they will be the most highly outfitted people in the district. They'll have surgical N95s, KN95s. They'll have face shield, a gown, gloves. And not to mention, again, I keep saying it, but we have these ionizers in every area that work wonderful on aerosols. Each principal has already designated a quarantine room and has it ready to go. So again, it is going to be a little learning process, as Ms. Wester said, but I think we can handle that.
So what's our next move? Well, Carol's body was found by her friend Lane Gibson, so maybe she could shed some light on what was going on in her life back then. In the meantime, we gotta find Bill. See if you get eyes on his family. After Lane's gonna do something.
It's quiet. Where's everyone?
But it's going to be a learning curve, and each case is going to be different. And if you do, and just remember, when they do use the wellness room, as soon as that student goes home, you call your custodian down to sanitize the room to get it ready for the next person. Like Dr. Law said, we're coming in with kindergartners first, and those are your ones that are usually going to be complaining because this is going to be their first time away from home. So they're going to come down and complain about my tummy hurts and I want mom. But phasing it in, I think we should do well, especially if there's building subs that are already assigned to each building. They kind of help pick up that slack too. Just my 2 cents.
I just want to remind the board and everyone else to encourage parents. Some of them jump on virtual education. They jump on when their kids are learning, jump on and complain about a teacher, get into it to a teacher. We can't have that kind of nonsense going on. If they have a complaint or a concern, there's a proper place to do that. Contact their principal and have the conversation, or if they want to, they can find the time to meet with the teacher. But jumping on and cussing out teachers, we've had that, and so have other districts. Superintendents all talk about this. We're in a pandemic. People are doing things that they probably wouldn't normally do, but that doesn't mean we can excuse the behavior. And I'm certainly not going to excuse the behavior. We've had these conversations about what our plans and our responses will be if that happens. But we'll probably send something out again, but we need the Board of Education to encourage our parents to make good decisions, that this is a pandemic, that everybody's trying his or her best to do what's right by their own children, by their children. So just keep that in mind. We're going to have people that are going to say, Romulus is ghetto, Romulus don't know what they're doing. We're going to hear all that nonsense. Okay. We've spent a whole lot of time to do this the right way.
It's
okay?
every year.
It's not going to be perfect necessarily, but we, as Secretary Wester said, listen, we're going to learn something every day. We're going to learn a little bit more and more and more, but I don't need anybody perpetuating the nonsense. Okay. And hopefully we won't have it though. I'm getting back. All right, it's time to move on, right?
Is that it for the for your presentation, Dr. Laws?
I didn't have anything more to add unless there were additional questions.
Thank you for everything.
Dr. Edmondson, have we looked into the possibility of possibly hiring nurses just temporarily? Is that something we can do?
Dr. Laws is dying to answer that question.
I can tell.
I'm going to let her do that. You can see she wants the mic.
No, actually, Miss Hazel's jumping on that one because we've talked about that one as well. Quite a bit.
So we've been chasing a firm to try to find a nurse for us. And as you are probably aware, before COVID, there was already a nursing shortage in our country. And so as we're trying to find a school nurse and have been pursuing those avenues, we haven't been able to come up with a person yet. And again, this is why we went back to from the Michigan Health and Human Services Department, from the Wayne County Health Division. You don't have to have a medical degree in order to assist with the roles that we've created in terms of the COVID symptoms and the quarantine room. So having another nurse would reassure everybody. It was why we were trying to find one. But unfortunately, we have not been successful in being able to identify. We've been working with a recruiting firm, and I think that they're tapped out because their webpage for nurses in our area, the link no longer works. So it's just, you just get to a certain point in terms of what the capacity is and why we want it to be assured that a medical degree isn't required in order to assist with the quarantine room and following those protocols, which the Wayne County Health Department has done an awesome job with that. And it's actually a virtual binder. And the reason why it's a virtual binder is that it can be updated as timely as it needs to be. And one of the things that comes from the CDC is that the number of days that you need to be isolated or quarantined if you've been exposed. It's one of the pieces that has probably changed the most in the last couple of months, whether it's 10 days or 14 days or 10 days. And so in order for us to always be using the most recent information that is available, that's what the virtual binder is all about, because they can update that in real time so that we're following the proper protocol on this day, which might look a little different than the protocol we were following 4 days ago, or might look a little different than the protocol we're going to follow 5 days from now. So this is why, understanding that protocol, having those resources, those are the key things. Yes, we would have loved to have also had a nurse, on board, but again, the medical degree is not a requirement in order to do the things that we're asking the people in those roles to do. And I'm looking to recruit 25 people because I probably need more like 10. But I'm going for 25 to try to get the 10. Do I really need 5 paraeducators in an elementary building? It would be nice to have. That's why we're trying to do it. But in terms of our ability to support what we think is going on, when we look at the numbers of students who are coming, it might be a little overkill, but that's okay. We would do that. We would staff that way in order to have that assurance that we are able to support what's going on, both our instructional staff and our students.
My apologies for talking. I was talking to my wife, who's a nurse, and I asked her, did she know of anyone? She works at the University of Michigan School of Nursing. She said, is it part-time? If we can give her more information, she would at least try to get us through the University of Michigan. Sorry, I didn't realize I was not muted.
Because that could be like a district nurse.
In medicine, I'm sorry.
It can be like a district nurse, whereas he or she can facilitate throughout the district and train our staff or our secretaries as needed for insulin shots or, dispensing medication, getting those books right that we're supposed to log, every day when we do give out medication. That would be a good position. Even if it was a part-time district position that could help straighten up and, those practices in our buildings that happen on a day-to-day basis.
Mr. Garland, do you know, with our custodial staff, have they been surveyed to find out what percentage of the current custodial workers are planning on returning? Have we lost any there? Will there be any additional custodial staff hired to assist with the additional cleaning responsibilities, or are teachers going to be cleaning in their own rooms?
Well, we haven't lost any staff because of COVID. Now, obviously, there's always turnover for people. Currently, I think we're just a couple people short at the high school, but we are looking to hire there. With the current numbers and the number of staff we have, we don't anticipate needing additional staff to cover for the high touch points, and we've already have those factors in place for scheduled cleanings and using the aerosol spray misters and doing those things. And we also have discussed about, you know, like in high schools, there's no way if you would have to have 60 custodians if you were going to clean a classroom in between each class. So well, obviously students are going to have to work out a little bit of that, wiping down their own desk and areas as well. So, I mean, it's not practical or even possible to have that many staff members to where we would handle it in that manner. So we have other practices in place that are gonna accentuate that. And again, you know, the district has worked really hard at securing the right pieces of equipment to really knock this aerosol down. And there's new information on the CDC. I encourage everyone to see it about the contamination rates on hard surfaces. They backed off a lot on that. So those are always good things to get updated on. They're not as, they don't feel as it's likely for someone to catch it from touching an area or being in an area. We still are practicing those things though, but it's more of an aerosol concern in the district. Again, I keep saying it, they've gone above and beyond in their ASHRAE standards, meaning bringing in 20% fresh air. They've gone above and beyond in putting these bipolar ionizers, which everyone can watch the video and see how they work. I mean, we're about as safe a district as I think there is in the state, and I feel confident saying that.
Okay, thank you for that, and those videos have been helpful. Just so we're clear, because the thing I'm asked multiple times is, will custodians then come in and clean if there is an area that is suspected of being contaminated? So we will not have students or teachers responsible for cleaning anything. Is that correct?
If there's a possible contamination of a room, we're going to want to evacuate that room, and we're going to want to treat that room and make sure that everything is wiped down and clean. I mean, that's just how it's going to be.
And the possible contamination, is that determined by someone needing to leave the room if they have 2 or more of the symptoms on the checklist?
Now, see, that's where we diagnosing someone with COVID is a different thing, because someone could have a stomach ache or someone could have a sniffle or whatever. My granddaughter goes to District 7, and she's come home 3 times with a sniffle and been tested 3 times and never tested positive. And so, I mean, we're gonna have to look at how we're gonna handle that side of it. Most of the time, if we can go in and treat that room and wipe it down, it should be okay.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then I have one last question. I apologize for all the questions. Did we do another staff survey to determine the staff positions on teaching both in person and virtual at the same time? And will we be adding paras to those classrooms that have a higher number of students, you know, where the split is higher to assist with that teacher? Or are we only hiring extra paras for the quarantine rooms and escort service? Well, yeah.
So our concept about the paras is to help in multiple ways. So this is support that our buildings don't usually have. Yes, to escort a student to our quarantine room if that's what we need to occur. But also, you know, when we think about especially those younger students, can we provide some support there? If we have some students that the teacher is instructing virtually and some students who are in person, you know, if there is a need for that kind of support, that's why we looked at the paraprofessional role at the elementary level. At the secondary and high school levels, they're looking for a slightly different kind of support again, and that was, you know, with input from the administrators at that level about what would be most helpful. So I think that those paras could serve in more than one role, and that was really kind of our thought and why we were looking to recruit above what we thought the need would be so that we could provide additional support.
Thank you. And did we get teacher feedback regarding the teaching virtual and in person simultaneously? I
mean, I don't think that we've done another separate survey, but But again, when we were pursuing this idea and trying to think of all these ideas related to students returning to in-person, we had these building level teams. We had a team that Dr. Lafayette Laus, was leading, and we broke into smaller groups. We had input from teachers at all levels about what that could look like, what are things to take into consideration. So we really did try to manage to get that input from them. And as I've shared before, we have another meeting with our teachers this week, now that we think we have the numbers and we have more specific things, so that we can have a conversation in greater detail about what some of those concerns may be and what are we doing to address them. Mr. Garland has a lot of things in place that I think will be a relief to them, but we always want to listen and problem solve and see how we can go about achieving what we're trying to do, which is to give an opportunity for our students to have in-person instruction before the year is out. So that's really our goal. We're working collaboratively with our instructional staff, with our custodial staff, with our food service staff, with our transportation to try to make that happen.
I just want to add to that, although we haven't done a survey per se, in having those conversations and meetings, also building principals have been working with their staff to take a look at what it will look like for each school, and being part of those discussions. A lot of what we discussed were what are our options based on our constraints. And so some of the decisions that we've had to make have been based on our constraints that existed prior to us even looking at return to in-person. And one of those big things that is different for Romulus that compared to some other districts is that we didn't start off with multiple levels. So many districts started off with a virtual and an in-person. Even if the in-person was a plan, they were virtual as well, but they separated them from the very beginning of when you do come in person, you are going to be on this track. And if you plan on being virtual, you're going to be on this track. And we had everybody virtual at the same time. And so then to try to back out of that is very difficult for a variety of reasons. You impact students' relationships with teachers. At the middle school and high school level, it becomes extremely difficult because when you don't have that separated to begin with, high school classes have one teacher who can teach a subject area, so you can't do two different tracks at this point. I can't split one teacher to teach multiple subjects, both in person and virtual, on different paths. And so we had to look at what could we do given our existing constraints. So although we recognize that having a group of students in person and virtually at the same time is certainly not the most ideal model, we had to look at all of the different factors. And then when we landed on that, then we had to say, okay, based on this is where we're going, how can we support you to the best of our ability? And so we have had meetings with teacher representatives, and we continue to do that. We're going to do that some more this week. And again, working with the building principals to work with their staff on looking at what supports that they can provide to make the most of it. We've talked about different instructional kind of concepts and ideas, how you can group students in different ways so that, for example, a virtual group may be working on one thing while an in-person group is working on something, and then how you might flip that. So we recognize that it's not ideal, but we didn't go into this with an ideal to begin with. So we have to try to make the best decisions we can based on where we're at right now.
I'd like to add to that briefly. I'm not going to do it as eloquently as Dr. Laws. The reality is we've been on virtual education for the last 5 months, maybe even more. Let me say 6. At some point, we have to come back. At some point, everybody knows that we have to come back. The governor has spoken loudly to all schools and said, by March 1st, you better get in school. Essentially, you better get in school or you have to have a plan. Sometimes you have to just make the decision. We knew that this was coming. We did talk to teachers, but we're not going to sit and be paralyzed waiting for everybody to be able to come up with the same ideas or that we're all going to be in agreement. We're not. The reality is that we are all hired at the cabinet level to do our job, to do the best possible job. We feel that we have done that. I have not seen a district, not that I'm checking other people's websites, but the way that we have done things has been very, very professional. We have been collaborative, particularly where we need to be as well. But sometimes it's time to get moving. And that's where we are now. We have a plan. We've given our parents an opportunity. I apologize to the staff if they feel like they shouldn't have to come in. That's the district. Okay. Nobody was saying that for the last 6 months, were they? I don't think so. The reality is that we made the best decision for everyone that we could. And we're at the point now where it is time to return. We've had the vaccine so that nobody can say that anymore. We had an opportunity. Previous to that, people were concerned they didn't have the vaccine. Well, we had our first shot. Most of us, many of us, 66% had it 3 weeks ago, and we're about to get our second shot on Saturday. I assure the board, of course, you're going to have a couple of naysayers who are texting you, calling you, letting you know that it wasn't fair. It has been fair. We have taken our time. We've been pretty strategic in the plan that we have, and that's where we are now. We do work with our unions, but I'm not going to be paralyzed by anybody. The reality is that we got to get out here, and this is what we're going to do. And we're trying to be as safe as possible. But our governor let us know it's time to go back. I couldn't do it as eloquently as you, Dr. Law, so I'm going to try it next time. Next item. I was just saying it's time to go.
I say, who's waiting to speak? I don't know. I'm good.
My salad about to get me a nap soon.
Are there any other questions on this? Do we still have everyone?
Item 9.
Okay. Well, that item 8 is an action item. So I'm pulling up the motion for that. If somebody has it and wants to read it. With my papers. Hang on.
Madam Vice President, I make the move that the Board of Education approve the recommendation to adopt the following schedule for return to in-person learning. Phase 1, March 1st, RECC and special education, self-contained. March 4th and 5th, kindergarten at all schools. Phase 2, March the 8th, 1st through 5th grade at the elementaries and 6th grade at Barth. March 11th and 12th, 6th grade at Romulus Middle School, and 9th grade only at the high school. Phase 3 will be March 15th, 7th and 8th grade at the middle school, and 10th through 12th grade at RHS. The rationale: Wayne County Health Department has provided vaccination opportunities for educators. Phased-in approach allows for district and schools to adjust to changes related to in-person learning in a systematic manner. The schedule provides time for an orientation and adjustment period for kindergarten, 6th, and 9th grade students. Building and district plans are close to finalized and are expected to be ready in time for phases listed, pending available resources, staffing, etc. Parents' declarations are due by February 21st, and a report on results will be provided to the board. Budget implications, none. Can we get a support?
Or Terrell.
Roll call. Terrell.
Yes.
Kennard. Evans.
No.
Kennard. Is Ms. Kennard still here? Piles.
I agree that in person is best, but I'm no until we get these other safety measures in place. So my vote to no tonight is no.
Kennard.
Her internet goes out. Has anyone heard from her?
She just unmuted herself.
Kennard. Is she still there, Mr. Cooper?
She is.
She
Ms.
shows,
Stiles was talking. She just unmuted herself.
She just put in the message yes. Wester is yes. I'm not sure how this goes now.
I'm sorry. You broke up.
Terrell was yes, Kennard was yes, Wester is yes. We have 2 no's, Evans and Piles.
Motion fails. And this is, I think, the questions that were raised, as Dr. Laws had said, even if we push it back a week, to get these things in place and be able to present, that we have people and that they're trained and that we have the staffing for the lunch, for the paras, for the room, to be able to answer these questions that we didn't have answers for tonight, would just make, I know it would make me more comfortable. And based on the feedback I have gotten, those were things I couldn't answer. So to send people back into that, I want to make sure that we are sending people into healthy, safe environments.
I look at it from the standpoint of we already have 3 building subs that are allocated to each building. We're starting off week 1 with just kindergarten coming in. We're never going to be at 100% in terms of staffing the way to get the children back. We're phasing it in. We started back virtual, in person, and it was hard, but we had small class sizes. And when you're looking at a classroom of 15 to 16 on a max, we're starting off with kindergarten coming in, to whereas you do have extra bodies there that will be able to help in the event that a baby is feeling sick and needs to get down to the office. In terms of making sure that safeguards are there. I just don't understand what more.
Well, I guess what it is.
My opinion, because I work in the school every day, so
Right.
I see it firsthand. I see it firsthand from both sides. As a parent, as an employee, I see it. I deal with it. I'm the front line. I'm that administrative assistant. I deal with the babies when they come down. I have a tummy ache, so I may have one sitting in this chair over here that has a tummy ache, and I may have a teacher that calls me and says, "I have little Johnny that just, threw up in the bathroom and they have a headache." Okay. She's like, "I'm bringing him down and he's going to the wellness room." So I've worked with that I've been there, so I see it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it to me. That's why I'm kind of like, it
Right.
can be done. It's never going to be at that 99 or 100% to where we're going to have all these positions filled. If that's the case, we'll never get back.
Right. And I agree with the things you just said, but because of the pandemic, the scope of it is a little broader. My own children, my
grandchildren are in the building too. My grandchildren are at
What
WIC.
I'm saying is they had chosen the face-to-face option. And honestly, I was prepared to vote yes. I am disheartened by the lack of answers we had tonight. And trial and error, when we're talking about lives, I'm not willing to send people back into an environment that we don't have answers for on a trial and error basis. I can't do that. I'm one vote though. I understand that. But
Right. I'm not doing this trial and error. I'm a parent, I'm a grandparent. I have grandchildren in the district as well as nieces and nephews that are in the district that have chosen to, come back in person. So I guess I need to hush.
No, and it'll be good as we get those positions filled and people trained and we have, more of those answers. That I think that we need to assure that we are returning people to safe environments. Moving on to number 9, the report of the subcommittees. We have a policy update. Does anyone from the policy committee have that update? Ms. Kennard, are you with us? Since Ms. Beard is
She
not.
logged out and was logging back in, according to her message, because she was having microphone issues.
Does the Finance Committee have a report tonight, Ms. Terrell?
The Finance Committee does not have a report. We have not met since our last meeting.
Okay.
I can give a brief overview of the CTE meeting from Thursday. We did a tour of our facility. We made some, everybody did a couple of, gave their vision of what they would like it to see. Also, Mr. Cooper showed pictures of their last visit over to Harper Woods, I believe it was. And yeah, so we did that and went over. There was some good conversation about trying to get the everyone involved and what we wanted our CT program to look like. Making it bright, making it welcoming when you walk into those into the hallway. There was a lot of conversation, and we're just looking forward to the next meeting. Ms. Kennard, are you back?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
I just gave a little bit of CTE if you wanted to continue and give some more feedback.
Okay, thank you for that. We really could use that tower now. I've been having problems here. But anyway, thank you, Ursula. The meeting was more of a reflection and also brainstorming. And the facilitator for that was Yen Azigro. I believe I'm pronouncing her name, where she did this graphic based on the information and the brainstorming that was from the recipients, from all of us that was in the group. And so it started out with looking at where we are and what our programs are, today and yesterday, and then perhaps coming back at our next meeting and determining what programs would be beneficial for our students, and looking at it from a board perspective. I've taken it a little further, and that is what will attract other students to our district, to our CTE program that stands out above all others, because we have neighboring community districts that have CTE. But what can we do? What would be more beneficial when those clusters open? And how CTE functions and works is that there's a cluster of programs that is available, and when they make those decisions, that you have an open window, and in that window, you have the opportunity to, select the ones that you feel that is beneficial for your student and for your school district. And when that window is closed, then the opportunity is there that you lost. And the reason why I'm saying I'm not going to get too much into the graphics and the process or whatever, because we do have a meeting that's coming up relatively soon where Dr. Harlan will be able to give more drill down information on it. But the overview of it is that looking at what we have and making it stronger, determining what we should keep. One of the things that really, really got my attention was the information from our one of the principals, Ms. Crockett, when she gave data pertaining to the classes. We have high enrollment, but we have low non-completers, and that 70% of our Romulus High School students are CTE. And so that kind of raised a little bit of piqued my interest there in terms and wanting to know why. And so that we're probably looking into, what's happening there, because we should be having more completers in our program. And it perhaps could be, some things there, which I'm not going to go into today. I think that Mr. Cooper, I wanted to reach out to you, but eventually I think the board would want to see some of those photos that we saw. We had the opportunity of seeing at some of the site visits. And so I'll get with you later. So maybe at the next meeting or something, we can do something where we can show them and they can have the opportunity of seeing, our building, where we are, and I think the majority of individuals who went on these site visits, when they got to where we were going, and then looking back at where we are at Romulus, it just wowed us. because of the many opportunities and the things that's available. Mr. Garland also gave us information pertaining to our facilities. That's some of the things we're going to be looking into. And what's the bigger picture? Where should we be going? What should we be looking for and looking at? So with that, some of them we had site visits. I don't know if Ursula mentioned it. Harperwood. That seemed to be a very, very exciting visit there. Although all of them were. But this one seemed to be one of the big ones. I think they had a location where they had turned a building into a CTE center, and they were even
they turned the old Circuit City building.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, old city building. Yeah, and then they even had culinary arts where they were provided with a lunch there. So I know they appreciated that one. We had a walkthrough at Romulus High where Ursula, I believe, did the actual, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. And then we had Denisa who did the virtual of our Romulus High School. And if they want to have any information pertaining to their experience on that, they can. Do you have either one of you want to say anything pertaining to that? Okay, so
no, that's what I opened up with, Ms. Kennard.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so those are the things that we have concluded our site visits. And so now the group is going to come back together. We individually, the question was put to us, what programs, where we would think our students and what would be beneficial in, and what is today's, merging, CTE programs, what should that look like? So we all brainstormed, and there's a list. We hope to come back at the next meeting and have some more extensive conversations pertaining to and how we're going to address that. So that's at our next meeting. We don't have those many more meetings. I think Dr. Adams said a couple more. And hopefully when we're done with that, we'll be able to identify additional programs to what we have. And then looking at, how we can strengthen what we have, and then perhaps looking at the bigger picture of like where we're going with it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that, hey, we may be expanding. We might want to do a center. I know that I did some digging and looking and reading, and I know there's a trend now where career technical education now is the CCTE, and that is college career technical education, where both of those are coming together. And so I plan to have that conversation with the committee as well as we begin to move forward. And so that's all I have. And I will bring some information and probably put a PowerPoint something together so the board could see more of the things that we saw, and they could visualize the strategic, planning part for it. Thank you.
Ms. Kennard, can you give a policy update? You weren't there when we were asking for a policy update.
A policy update?
The policy update?
I didn't get that information. No, I don't have that. I don't have that. If I think Teresa has that.
We were just asking if there was one in web accessibility for policy number 8008.
Okay, 8008. Oh yeah, the web accessibility where we needed to update the names from the previous director of special services.
Yes.
And then the web accessibility coordinator. We needed to make those changes. And that was just primarily of changing the name. And so after we had a conversation, we didn't think that it was something that we needed to bring back to the board because it was primarily changing the name and putting Dr. Loss in I think it was for the Director of Special Education for in that section for the updated notice. And for the web accessibility was Mr. Cooper. And so they manually just went in and made that change for us. And they're going to, yes.
Correct. Those were just going to be updated in our policy, but did not require.
Right. It's going to be It's going to be updated in our policy and then redistributed back to us. Once that update is done, we'll get those inserts.
It's just names due to new employment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, just the names due to the employment. Correct.
Thank you, Ms. Bernard.
Thank you, Ms. Bernard. I do
Thank
have
you.
one question for you and or Dr. Edmondson. As you talk about new programs coming up, do either of you happen to know when the state opens up the list of programs that we are able to choose from? And when we see that list, will we be doing another student survey to determine interest in those programs?
Well, I do know that window is open now. And the window is open now. And what that list looks like, I'm not privileged to knowing what's on that list. I think Ms. Crockett or Dr. Harlan could probably get that information, or someone who's in administration could probably answer that.
Ms. Kennard, just to piggyback, what was stated at our meeting was that the committee was going to look at the top 25 jobs for, the 2025. We're looking at the top 25 to see where we wanted to go. And each member was going to come up with his or her 3 or 4. And then there was going to be a survey that went out to the students to see what they were going to be interested in before we actually made our final decision on what our plan was going to look like for the new CTE program.
Okay. And knowing that, we definitely need to find out when that closed. Yeah, right. We need to find out. Yeah.
And my question was regarding not just the top 25, but what specifically Romulus Community Schools has the option to implement, because I know there are restrictions based on what other districts in our area have programs.
That's part of that's some of our upcoming work. We have not gotten to that part yet.
So when, Ms. Wester, do you know what that window is at that the open programs? Because I know when it does open up, we need to be prepared to make decisions expeditiously. That was the case with the cosmetology. Do you know what the window is?
The window we would have to get with Dr. Harlan or Ms. Crockett to find out. But I know we had not narrowed down what our possible choices would be.
The window has opened up in October. The window is open now.
And right. And then we have, when does it close? And how, and
now that I do not know. It closes.
All right. Thank you. And to clarify, the policy was naming, we had a previous special ed director named. So for our compliance, we were changing that. Is that correct? Angela Broaden?
It looks like we just put in here that it was going to be Director of Special Services for compliance and then Director of Human Resources for web accessibility without putting a name in there.
Okay. Paula wanted us to make sure that we
right. That's what her text. She wanted to know if it was going to be a name there or if we were just leaving it as that. So
yeah. And typically the emails are attached to that on our web. So Mr. Cooper, do you have anything to add to that?
I'm sorry, my headphones just died. Can you say it again?
Do you have anything to add to that when we update the positions for the special services and the director? Do we attach the email addresses there specifically on our website? So do we name the names or just the positions for clarification?
I update contact information based on the positions and the associated pages that are for each department.
Okay, so then that contact information will be there.
Always.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the subcommittees? If not, we will move on to number 10, report of the vice president. And to that, I just wanted to touch base on the millage on the committee, and Dr. Edmondson, talk with you and see when you would like to start those meetings, and so we can get that underway before you are gone, because you are a good, you help us promote that, and you have brought a lot of changes and energy to the district. So we definitely would like to be able to utilize that message that you bring in addition to your videos while you're gone. But yes, if I've been asked about the committee meetings and if any dates have been set for that, and that's the only topic that I have.
That wasn't a question, was it?
Yes, like have we set? Do you have in mind when we would start those committee meetings?
Don Sovey and I are supposed to have a conversation about it. I don't know how much we want to get him involved.
Yes.
Is it important? Yeah, he might be able to have something to, contribute, certainly. But this is a committee that usually takes, I don't know, it's about 6 to 8 weeks usually where you get moving on that. I would say soon. Since I'm going out, I would suggest that it's soon. Trying to figure out who's the committee. There's certain things that I can and can't do. Most things I can do. So that's probably me and whomever getting together and determining what's the direction. Presenting it to the board and determining if that's the direction you want to go in.
Right. And I know that you had ideas for this. Do you feel like we need Mr. Sobey for this, or?
He put it down. He recommended, he had a recommendation of a certain amount of hours. It was just too many hours for me. But I told him that I would call him this week and we could have a conversation because I want to hear what his suggestion might be.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Cooper, are there any communications from the public that have come through?
Should
There
be.
are two. From a Molly Phillips, very pleased with the new food company. Way better food, real food that seems healthier instead of all packaged stuff. My kids approve, and so do I. Can't wait to see what they can do when a school is normal again. Comment number 2 is from Robin Johnson. And the question is, so what is the new proposal for Return to Learn?
That's a very good question. I'll say for me, I can't answer that at that time.
Correct. Very good question.
Can't answer it. Got to figure it out. It was a monkey wrench thrown. I got to figure out, I got hit by it, and I got to figure out what now. I respect the board. This one's a bit troubling for all the work that we put into it. I know that they have some other suggestions that they'd like. I can't determine how many people are going to take a parapro position. And if that's what that has to mean, then we're not going to be able to start.
We're not going to come back.
We're not going to get them. Okay. We're not going to get them. Other people know that as well. So it's definitely a monkey wrench. I'm not prepared at this point to answer because I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe we come back. We will be posting. I think things are posted. I did a video. We'll see. But, we were talking about some other things. I think this is, I understand people's votes. I get it. But sometimes we have some setbacks when we do things publicly. We got a millage. We got a whole lot going on now. This is thrown. Now we got to do this again. After I have a millage that I got to sell and some other things. And now when people are going to ask us, that's what's going to happen tomorrow. We're going to get hit by a lot of people saying now. So I do not know. I'll have to think about it. I'll get with our cabinet and we'll talk. I'll get with Ms. Miles. We'll talk and figure out what we're going to do. The board has to have some conversations. You can't do it a certain way to be able to do that. So maybe March 8th would be the next time that we can confront. Maybe. But this Thursday, there's another board meeting, a closed session. we wouldn't be bringing this to it, but if we had to, if I had to open it up, if we had to go into an open session first, that would be a conversation for Ms. Piles and I to have, because potentially, just go back, there's something that's missing or something that Ms. Ebbets and Ms. Piles want. Maybe we can do that. That's a suggestion also. I mean, frankly, we have 2 board members that are missing. Maybe they get their vote and then it flips it. So there are some things, but I figured that would be the next question. That's what I said. I'm sure someone can ask that question, because right now we got to figure that out. And that's a conversation with Ms. Piles, Ms. Ebbets. I wasn't keyed into all of their concerns.
Right.
Cabinet had it. We'll meet tomorrow and hear those concerns, see how we can address them. And then we're going to move forward the best that we can. But it's a setback. I will say that publicly. It's a setback. Okay. But we'll be able to get beyond it, though. I promise everybody that we'll be able to get beyond it.
Absolutely. And I think that, I mean, we're close. These concerns, I didn't have them until, hearing some responses tonight. But again, I think that, we've got things posted. We've got, I'm glad that we're posting more positions than are actually needed. Thank you for that, Ms. Hazlitt. And I know that our food staffing has been a concern even pre-pandemic. So, there were things that I heard tonight personally that I didn't expect. So, but again, my vote is based on safety and not to throw a monkey wrench, sir. I hope that you know that. And I'll just leave that there. Are there any communications from board members?
So no. So I'm going to ask Ms. Piles and Ms. Ebbets that you give us what your concerns are, because otherwise we're going to be trying to throw darts in the dark. We need to know what they are so that we can try to address them. And if it's about hiring, that's not within our control. I understand that, but it's not within our control if we can't get parapros. But if parapros are related to your safety issue, then we're not going to open. And that's okay. We got to do something. And if we don't open, what I have to now do is I have to go back to the governor, because the governor wanted to know what schools were not going to open in March. And we weren't, but I got a call personally to find out where we were going. So now I'm going to have to go back and let them know that we're not. And so we're just pushed back a little bit, as I said. It doesn't mean that we can't move forward, but it is a little monkey wrench, frankly. So now I got to figure out how to do that and all the people that I have to contact. But I respect that. I would just like my cabinet and myself to be able to get the questions, the concerns that you have, so that we can address them tomorrow.
Right. And I would hope that we would still have a goal of reopening in March. For me personally, I just wanted those questions about, who would escort students, like a buddy system. I'm not comfortable with that, simply because if there's a kid who is potentially infected with COVID being escorted by a buddy who's not, there's just safety concerns. And as I said, we chose face-to-face for our own children, but there were things that, I didn't realize, some holes that were still there. And so again, I want to be as safe as we can be. And I know, Mr. Garland, you have put a lot into this, and I appreciate that. And that is not overlooked. And even our ventilation and things we have in place now that we didn't previously, and the PPE. But again, for me personally, Dr. Edmondson, I would like to know I would like to know the training, what is involved in the training. I understand it doesn't have to be a medical professional. I just suggested that because maybe the presence of a nurse overseeing this would help family, staff, board members. So I would just like to know, our processes as far as, escorting sick kids, quarantining them. I don't want to just leave that stuff to trial and error. Those were my concerns. And I didn't expect to hear that tonight. I didn't know that we were still working that out. So I want to know what's involved in the training, who will be doing it. If I'm glad that we're going to have extra people in case somebody doesn't show up, but knowing that that's a problem because people are afraid to apply and come to work. no, we cannot eradicate fear, but we can't ignore it either. And so if people are afraid to work, we still cannot compromise the safety of our students and staff because people are afraid to apply for a para job and work a quarantine room. So those are concerns. And again, I believe that our students, for a lot of reasons, need to be back face-to-face. But I also believe that they need to come back face-to-face to a safe, healthy environment. And we should be able, when we vote yes to send them back to it, that we can give more concrete answers to some of these safety concerns that were being asked.
And my concerns, when I asked about lunches, a meeting is being held Wednesday. So by Wednesday, we'll have more answers. Where's the quarantine room? Well, we haven't determined that. So maybe by Wednesday, we'll know those things.
That was determined.
Yes, it was. Each principal has determined the quarantine
Your
room.
own quarantine room.
Yes. And I just want to give you guys a little hope. I talked, Chef Carter Knowles was on a meeting, and they already posted for lunch moms, monitors. That's posted as of tonight. So hopefully we can get some of these things worked out. But it's not that our principals worked really hard and diligently as well, making sure that they chose a room that would not only work, but would be out of the general populace so that we could make sure that people and staff are safe.
And just to piggyback off of Bill, your sick room or wellness room, that's not gonna be a full-time job. To whereas to that person, be it he or she, will not be assigned to that position from 8 to 3 because it's not gonna be an. That's why I said we have staff on hand that will be able to go there when it's needed. So that's not a full-time position. That's why I brought up the fact of if we have 3 building subs, any one of those can come down for little Johnny to take little Johnny to that room for the 15, 20 minutes that's needed to be there till parent comes and picks them up. And then he or she goes back and does their regular job.
Well, it's easy to say 15 or 20 minutes. I've sat for hours waiting for parents.
And I understand that, but in the sick room, that person is not really going to be in that sick room. When I have a child that's in there to go home because of COVID symptoms, I'm not sitting in that room. That room is right next to my office, and the door is open. I go check on that baby or whatnot. But what I'm saying is, it's not a full-time job. Is what I'm saying, Sue, whereas to a building sub or someone can go down there in the event, that a baby needs to come down.
Dr. Edmondson, do you have any other questions?
No, I don't have any questions. I just asked if you could.
Or are you
motion to adjourn?
Clear on what the concerns were?
I'll send you an email, Dr. Edmondson.
And I would hope that we do not abandon a March start date because we need face-to-face for, like I said, a lot of reasons. And we have groups of students who they need, in order to be served and have equitable learning, they need to be back place-to-place. I am not suggesting we forego that at all. I'm just saying any safety question that is asked, when I cast a yes vote, I don't want to cast a yes vote knowing that, oh yeah, we'll get answers to these questions later this week or next week. And I believe that that's a reasonable expectation.
So when would you expect us to go in front of the board again?
I guess when we have answers to those questions.
Right. So once we get the questions, if you want a March start, so we're looking at a special meeting. That would be another.
Well, it may not be a March 1st start, but right.
So we can't start March 1st because
I meant a March start. We would start in March. We are not. I mean, if we pushed it back a week or so, until we had staffing, until we had training, we're going to go back to school, and we know that we need paras, but we don't yet have many that are applying because they're afraid. And when they do apply, we have to train them, but we don't know what that training consists of. Honestly,
we still may not get paras until April.
Okay, but we have stated that this is how we are going to go back safely. So we cannot compromise safely because we don't have paras. We have to continue to deliver equitable learning and not compromise safety. And if that means we can get small groups properly, staffed and those things, then that's what we do to our most vulnerable at-risk students. But we don't say, well, we went in, it's saying we will get paras and that's part of our safety plan. Oh, now we can't hire any or find them, so we compromise safety? I can't vote yes for that. And if it ends up being a 6-1 vote, then so be it. But I will not compromise safety because we can't find bodies.
Understood, Ms. Piles. So we will, you guys have gotten you guys got Dr. Edmondson your questions. We will get that. Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Piles.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Terrell.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Wester, 9:05. Good night.
Good night, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Dr. Edmondson, I'll be sending you an email.